subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Is this? Diamante's eyes widened. A strong sense of crisis told him that if his body touched this black hole, there would be unbearable consequences. Oof. Do you know now that you're scared? It's too late. Kiana snorted coldly, and with a wave of her right hand, the spear of Yakong appeared in her hand, and she stepped forward again. Don't think I'm afraid of you, with some weird abilities. Diamante's eyes narrowed slightly, and he raised his western sword to block. Although the ability of the black hole is strong, as long as he is careful to guard against it and dodge, there is no problem. After all, the scope of influence is still too small. Diamante's judgment of this point is very accurate. The two fight each other, you come and go, because the ability to flutter the fruit will always have some impact on the unprepared Kiana. But with his sharp reflexes, he can easily dodge Diamante's attack in the end. The devil fruit's abilities are really strange, like magic. Rita looked at Diamante's displayed abilities with an interested look in her eyes. If you want, you'll have the opportunity to find one for you to study later. However, the devil fruit has a big disadvantage, that is, it is afraid of the sea, and after taking the devil fruit, it will become weak when it comes into contact with the seawater, which is a bit bad. Arthur said, shaking his head, how to make Rita and the others take the devil fruit and thus lose the opportunity to wear a bathing suit is really a bit more than worth the loss. And the devil fruit is also a dispensable existence for them. Captain, do you think Kiana will win? Mei E, who had been staring at the battle ahead, asked. Naturally, you will win, and the initial rush is just a lack of understanding of the devil fruit's abilities, and Kiana sometimes looks quite stupid, but she has a strong sense of battle. Everything was as Arthur said, and as the battle went on, Diamante's moves were all used. As an opponent, Kiana is becoming more and more adept, and her ability to flutter fruits is basically clear. Boom! On the final impact, Kiana kicked Diamante out of the way. Diamante, how are you? The people around Doflamingo hurriedly caught Diamante, who was flying upside down, and when they saw Kiana on the other side, their eyes were full of anger. The Don Quixote family is one and the same person, and everyone loves each other, which is worth learning. No, it's okay. Diamante's face was pale from the wounds cut by the spear of a Kong. How dare you hurt Diamante? Doflamingo raised his right hand, and with a slight movement of his fingers, several threads of silk that were barely visible to the naked eye shot towards Kiana. Doflamingo is a thread fruit ability, able to freely control threads that are invisible to the naked eye through the subtle operation of his fingers. These threads are extremely sharp and can easily cut through steel. At this moment, Mei moved, and a step out of the armor emerged. Lawgiver of Thunder. The figure instantly came to Kiana's side, pulled out the long knife at his waist, and thunder roared. Brush! Brilliant sword flashes, and lightning fills the entire corridor, shrouding towards Doflamingo and his party. Chapter 78 Boom Boom. Bursts of thunderstorms exploded, and the walls of the place where the lightning passed cracked. The dust in front of him gradually dissipated, revealing the potholed ground and walls. Directly in front of Arthur, the walls on both sides closed in the middle, forming a shield in front of Doflamingo. They have a lot of weird abilities. Kiana looked at the wall in front of her that looked like a door parting, and there was a look of surprise in her eyes. Be careful. Mei Yi's eyes narrowed, and the long sword in her hand swung down sharply to the side. Next to Kiana, a large hand made of rocks snapped together. You guys are so despicable that you actually carried out a sneak attack. Seeing this scene, Kiana pointed to the opposite side angrily, and suddenly her eyes widened in shock. A large human face emerges from the wall next to Doflamingo. Captain, did you see that? Out of the wall came a man alone, alas. Kiana looked at Pika standing in front of Doflamingo, shaking Arthur next to her with both hands, her eyes full of shock. Pika, a stone devil fruit with the ability, can assimilate the rocks he touches and use the appearance, hardness, and other properties of the rocks as his own strength. I see. But if you shake it so hard, your dear captain will be shaken to death. Ah, I'm sorry. Seeing Arthur's hair, which had become a little messy because of his shaking, Kiana was a little embarrassed to smooth it with her hands. Rita stood to the side, a faint smile on her lips. Captain, what's next? Mei Yi's voice came from ahead, and her purple eyes carried an aura of destruction in them. Peep a card. Before Arthur could answer, Peek on the opposite side couldn't help but take the lead. Strike first. The body sank, and the surrounding walls suddenly seemed to come alive, squeezing towards Arthur in them. Do it, Mei Yi. Receiving Arthur's order, a lightning flashed in Mei's eyes. Raise the long knife in his hand and swing forward. Brush. A sword wrapped in lightning flashed, and a huge opening was suddenly made above the wall. Let's go, let's get out. Whoosh. Arthur, Rita, Kiana, and Mei jumped out of the gap above and landed outside the naval branch. Is this a transformer? Kiana looked at everything in front of her in amazement. The entire naval branch is changing and is gradually taking on the appearance of a stone giant. Captain, please wait. Mei Yi will settle the battle soon. In the face of such a huge creature, Mei Yi walked forward slowly, without fear. Finally, the final fusion is formed. Peep a card. A sharp sound came from the stone giant's mouth, and he raised his fist like a mountain peak and slammed it down on Mei Yi. The wind pressure from the falling fist blew Mei Yi's long hair, and the head was slightly raised. Looking at the approaching fist, there was no trace of fluctuation in his calm eyes. Slowly raise your right hand and swing it upwards. A simple and unpretentious knife pierced through the middle of a fist made of rocks. The rock split and smashed into the side of Mei Yi. Pika looked stunned, and his other fist was about to strike. Brush. One step later, he flew out diagonally, cut off Pika's newly raised left arm and the entire shoulder. Ow, Mei Yi is amazing. Kiana, who was behind her, saw Mei Yi swing out two knives, and the big man in front of him had no power to fight back, and a small star suddenly appeared in her eyes. Of course, you only need to show a little strength to deal with them. Looking at the mighty Mei Yi, Arthur had a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. And not far behind Pika, Doflamingo and his party stood there, all shocked by Mei Yi's strength. This kind of attack is like a leisurely stroll, but it has no power to fight back. Is this really a pirate with a bounty of 80 million? Dover, Pika is running out of steam. Seeing that Pika in front of him hadn't even sent out a real attack for so long, Toribol was a little anxious. Let's do it together. Doflamingo looked at the other side with a gloomy face, and his body rushed out in an instant. Empty road. The clouds in the sky are tied with lines that are so thin that they are invisible to the naked eye, so that Doflamingo can fly and move at high speed in midair. Almost in the blink of an eye, he came to the top of Mei Yi, and his right hand was bent into the posture of a beast's claw. 5-color line. Each of the 5 fingers creates a thin, nearly transparent thread, each as sharp as a piano thread, which cuts or even cuts the opponent's body. Sensing the attack, Mei Yi's long knife was sideways in front of him to resist. The moment the silk thread touched the long knife, it was captured by Mei Yi. Sticky chains. In the distance, a chain of viscous brown, slippery slime formed a beaded lattice. Toribol, the sticky fruit power, can produce a thick, brown, slippery slime from anywhere on his body. Even his clothes can turn to slime, and even his nose can turn to slime. Mei Yi, who originally wanted to fight back, frowned when she saw this chain. Her steps paused, and her body stepped back. They're so cheating that they are bullying more and less. Mei Yi, I will help you. Seeing that the 3 people on the opposite side wanted to besiege Mei, Kiana immediately quit and was about to rush up, but was stopped by Arthur. Don't worry, Mei will take care of it. Seeing Kiana jumping on her feet, Arthur pressed his hands on her shoulders. That man's attack was disgusting, slimy. Kiana, who had calmed down, looked disgusted when she saw Torbal's attack. So if you have any kind of devil fruit ability, it's good to get used to it. Looking at Mei Yi, who was dodging Torbel's attacks back and forth. Arthur not only mourned for Doflamingo and his party for a while. Using such a disgusting thing as a weapon, I'm afraid any girl can't stand it. Mei Yi's expression was grim, and she didn't perish in silence. She exploded in silence. And Mei naturally chose to break out. The body jumped backwards and exited the range of the three, which made the three Doflamingo happy. It's not that powerful. In the face of the attacks of the three of them, they were powerless to fight back. I just don't know. If you let them know that it's because Torbel's attack is too disgusting and Mei Yi doesn't want to take it, so she dodges, how do you feel in your heart? Mei stood across from Doflamingo and took a deep breath. The slightly closed eyes opened suddenly, and a sharp light spread outward. Quick, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and arcs of electricity were slowly brewing, ready to go. Mei was surrounded by a faint arc of electricity flickering, and her body slowly leaned forward. Slash kill in an instant. So, transform into thunder and lightning and shuttle between the three of them. In the next second, Mei had returned to her place, and the long knife in her hand slowly entered the sheath. Doflamingo and the three of them were in the same position as before, not yet understanding what was happening. The long knife in Mei Yi's hand was all in the sheath at this moment. Suddenly, countless lightning bolts erupted from Doflamingo, Toripol, and Pika. At the same time, thunder and lightning poured down from the sky, enveloping the three of them. After more than 10 seconds, the thunder and lightning dissipated, and everything returned to calm. Toripol was taken care of by Mei Yi, and from the outside, he looked very miserable. His pupils had turned white, and he was obviously unconscious. He fell to the ground with a thud. Doflamingo's situation was better, but the results were not far behind, following in Torbel's footsteps. On the side of Pika, the rocks on his body were scattered one by one, and finally his body was exposed to the ground. Not far away, Diaman, who was temporarily resting due to his injury, watched this scene with horror. What happened? I didn't see what was going on at all, but the three Doflamingo were all defeated. Looking at Mei Yi walking towards Arthur's back, Diamani's eyes were full of disbelief. One move will wipe them out. What kind of terrifying strength is this? Chapter 79, Mei Yi, you're so amazing. Seeing Mei Yi coming over, Kiana excitedly opened her arms and hugged her. It seemed that she had wiped out all of Doflamingo's team. Kiana, you're also amazing. Mei patted Kiana and looked at Arthur. It's really amazing. Hearing Arthur's compliment, the smile on Mei Yi's face became a little thicker. Captain, what should I do with these people? Rita's gaze swept over the unconscious man on the ground, and then landed on Diamanti in the distance. Feeling the gaze cast at him, Diamanti's face was as ugly as it could be. As for the revolt, no kidding. I'm afraid the price of resistance is just an extra body lying on the ground. It's really a death before you get out of school. I am afraid that I will not be able to see the day when their young lord will reign in the world. Diamanti slowly closed his eyes, looking like he was going to kill and listen to him. But after waiting for a while, I didn't hear any movement, and I couldn't help but open my eyes. You, what are you going to do? When he opened his eyes, he saw Arthur and his party standing in front of him, which startled Diamanti. Give this to your young master when he wakes up. I've talked about making deals with me before, and I hope he will be the talk. Arthur said as he tossed a communicator to Diamanti. Just hold down that button and just talk. In order to prevent Diamanti from not knowing how to use it, Arthur specially explained how to use it for him. Looking at the back of Arthur and his party leaving, Diamanti held the communicator in his hand and stared stunned. Just let them go? Confused, it was true that Arthur and his party were drifting away, and Diamanti quickly accepted the reality that made him ecstatic. Struggling to get up from the ground, he dragged Doflamingo and his party onto the boat one by one. It wasn't until their ships began to sail the seas that Diamanti breathed a sigh of relief. Lying on the deck with Doflamingo and his party panting heavily, he couldn't help but think of what had happened before, and it still made him feel a little palpitating. Looking at the communicator in his hand, Diamanti was engaged in a fierce ideological struggle in his heart. According to his idea, He should never be associated with those horrible people. Now everyone is in a coma, and as long as he throws away the communicator, no one knows about it. But the courage he mustered was utterly shattered at the thought of Arthur's countenance. If you don't do what he says, you will end up in anger and come to the door and destroy them all. Alas, let's wait for Dover to make his own decision. Diamanti sighed, looking at the communicator in his hand and not only lost in thought. And on the other side of a Huberian, "Captain, why did you give the communicator to someone else?" Kiana sat down next to Arthur, her big eyes full of doubt. "I'm afraid the captain wants to subdue those people." Rita on the other side crossed Jiro's legs, her chin in her right hand, and her eyes had a wise light that saw through everything. "It's Rita. You can see it so quickly." Arthur smiled and picked up a grape in front of him and put it in front of Kiana's mouth. While looking at the grapes in front of her, Kiana opened her mouth and took Arthur's 2 fingers into her mouth. Seeing Arthur's gaze, Kiana's smiling eyes narrowed into a line and licked it lightly like a kitten. "It's all because the captain is too obvious. I'm sure anyone will be able to see it." Hearing Rita's words, Kiana was slightly stunned. She didn't seem to see anything. "Forget it. Let's keep silent so that you don't look so stupid." With her hands behind her head, Rita slowly leaned back on the couch and took a deep breath that made Arthur's gaze look over. "Rita, your clothes are still so big." "It's not just big, it's nice to the touch," Rita said and flew over with a wink. "But Captain, can you be sure those people will contact you?" At this point, Rita was a little worried. After all, May beat them so badly before. I'm afraid it's too late to escape. So how could she take the initiative to post it? If it's someone else, I'm not sure. But if it's Doflamingo, I'm 80% sure. Arthur's gaze was full of confidence. "Oh, why?" Rita raised her eyebrows, a little curious. "The reason is simple, because he is Doflamingo, and this is all that is needed." Arthur smiled, believing that Doflamingo understood that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. "Captain, what are you going to have for dinner today?" May walked out with a fruit platter. "Can you eat it?" May placed the fruit platter on the table, and Arthur said as he reached out and pulled it. May, who was still like a divine soldier before, is indeed a little daughter at this moment, leaning on Arthur's arms. "Captain, AI-chan will report back to you." At this moment, Ai's voice came from the communicator. "What's the matter, AI-chan?" Since Ai has something to report, it is naturally very important. "Captain, someone who wanted to land on our island has been successfully repelled by AI-chan." From the communicator, a light curtain ejected out, and Ai reported in an inviting manner, and looked like she was hurrying to praise me. It turned out to be such a thing. Arthur shook his head helplessly. "AI-chan is doing a good job. Keep up the good work. Any ship that wants to get close to the island will be sunk directly, and there will be no need to report again." "Okay, AI-chan understands." Ai excitedly agreed. Arthur didn't expect that because of his words, the island would become more and more eye-catching, and eventually it would be called the Island of Death. There are even some spontaneous organizations that are not afraid of death, with the goal of conquering this Island of Death. But that's all for later. Chapter 80, Navy Headquarters, inside the Marshal's office. Gang Gukong picked up the teacup in front of him, shook it slightly, then put it on the tip of his nose and sniffed it, and finally took a sip with satisfaction. "Ah, that's life." It's been a long time since he's felt like he's been at this seas. Although pirates are rampant on the seas, the new forces of the Navy are gradually becoming stronger. Without those powerful pirates making trouble on the sea, this life is really more comfortable, and I hope it can continue. Cyborg is a bit older now, and has been thinking about giving up this position lately. And the candidates are already available. Sengoku, this Navy with absolute justice in its heart. In fact, Cyborg Kong also considered Carp, but unfortunately he didn't even want to be a naval general, let alone become a marshal. Blue, blue, blue. Just as the Steel Bones were sipping tea comfortably, the phone bug next to him suddenly rang. "Marshal Kong, there is an urgent document to be delivered to you. On the sea, each naval branch governs an area and generally handles matters by itself. Only when it can't be dealt with will it be reported layer by layer. And this urgent document can be sent to him directly without going through layers of reporting. It can be seen that the state of affairs is urgent. The look on his face gradually converged, and the steel bone replied lightly, "Send it right away." Hang up the phone bug, and soon a Navy knocks on the door. "Marshal Kong, this is a document sent in an expedited." The Navy placed the document in front of the steel bones, saluted, and then withdrew, closing the door of the room by the way. Steel Gukong picked up the document and opened it, and the more he looked at it, the more solemn the expression on his face became. There are several pictures and a summary of the text in the document. The picture is the same naval branch where Arthur and Doflamingo had been before. Although only a few of the thousands of naval branches were killed, the entire naval branch was completely destroyed. This is the first time this has happened since the destruction of the Rocks pirates. What pirate would dare to be so bold now? Steel Gukong's face was as calm as water. This kind of situation that did not take their navy seriously, they must be attacked by thunderous means. Otherwise, they will become more and more presumptuous. Suddenly, Cyborg remembered a group of pirates he had almost forgotten, Arthur's pirates. It was an equal to locks in their hearts. No, it's been so long since they have been heard, and there's no way the Arthur pirates are interested in a small naval branch. Cyborg shook his head, threw the terrible thought out of his mind, took a deep breath, and began to focus on what was in front of him. This kind of thing is for the general to deal with, and some of the fuss is trivial. Cyborg thought for a moment and picked up the phone. "Call Major General Kazan." Soon, Kazan, wearing a white suit vest and dark blue shirt and a navy coat, walked in from outside. It's just that his eyes are blurred, as if he has just woken up. "Marshal Kong, you have something to ask me for." Kazan, the Navy code name Pheasant, is naturally a person with the ability of frozen fruits, and his strength is strong. In this sea, some pirates are terrified at the mere hearing of their name. Here's a copy of the material for you to look at. Cyborg pushed the information in front of him forward. The Pheasant looked at the pictures in the file, and the sleepiness on his face gradually disappeared. The ability to turn the Navy branch into such a way should be caused by the capable. Pheasant's brow furrowed slowly, and his mind was thinking about the recent relatively famous pirates who had determined their targets. "I'll leave this matter to you. Find out who dares to be so bold, and if you are sure, just eliminate it. For those who dare to provoke their Navy, there will be no mercy." "Yes, Marshal Kong." The Pheasant nodded, turned, and walked out. At the same time, on the other side, Doflamingo and his party gathered. "Dover, this is the so-called communicator. You see if we just threw him, or threw him, or threw him." Diamante still didn't want to have any contact with Arthur again. It's just too dangerous. They're like little sheep standing next to wolves, completely insecure. Doflamingo sat in his seat, and from the outside, he looked like he was back to normal, but he was still suffering a major blow on his heart. They were wiped out without even touching each other's edges. Will he be able to achieve his ambitions with his current strength? Taking the communicator from Diamante's hand, Doflamingo fiddled with it for a moment. Didn't he say anything specific about the deal? After a pause, Doflamingo said slowly, "No, it just said that there is an intention to trade, and you can contact through this communicator." Diamante's heart fluttered, and Doflamingo's expression seemed to be very interested in this matter. "Dover, it's better for us to be careful. The strength of the other party is unmatched by us, in case. In fact, it's not just Diamante who is worried. Even Toribol is a little afraid. The two of them almost mean the same thing. The farther away from that dangerous person is the better. Big risk means big reward." Doflamingo took the communicator in his arm and stood up from his seat as he said slowly, "Besides, with the strength they have, if they really want to be against us, they can wipe us out in one fell swoop in the naval branch." When these words were spoken, Diamante and Toribol fell silent. There seems to be some truth to that. We have all felt the strength of those people, the strongest we have ever seen, and being able to cooperate with them will be even more powerful for our actions. Speaking of which, basically Doflamingo has made up his mind. High risk, high reward. This phrase is not outdated anywhere. I'll swear to follow the young master. Toribol, Pika, and Diamante stood on one knee in front of Doflamingo from both sides, and the sound of lang lang echoed around. Chapter 81, Captain, it's been 2 days, and there is still no news. On the deck, looking at Arthur's back, Rita walked over with a smile and put her hands on his shoulders. It's a bit slow, could I have guessed wrong? Arthur rubbed his chin with his fingers and thought slightly, looking at May E on the side. May E, could you have done it too hard before? And they're still unconscious. At that time, Arthur saw the scene very clearly, slashing and thundering. I'm afraid that ordinary people can't wake up so easily. Captain, rest assured, it only takes a day to wake up from an injury of that magnitude, and it may take a little longer to heal. May is quite confident in her own proportions. Well, Arthur sighed. If Doflamingo really refused this cooperation, it would be a loss for both parties. However, Arthur overlooked the scruples of others. Although Doflamingo decided to cooperate with Arthur, in order not to put himself in danger, he made some preparations, which delayed time. After dinner, just as Arthur was soaking in the big bathtub and enjoying May rubbing his back, the communicator that was placed aside suddenly rang. Captain, it's a communication from Doflamingo. AI's voice came from the communicator. It's really not the right time to come. AI-chan, you can help me reply. Okay, Captain. On a small island, it was the temporary residence of Doflamingo and his party. Everything was ready, and Doflamingo pressed the communicator. However, after a few seconds, the communicator did not respond, and just when everyone thought they had been tricked, a light curtain came out of the communicator. Jiang. A virtual platform was built. The surrounding lights flickered, and thousands of people roared. Ai slowly rises from the middle of the stage. Let me introduce myself. I'm the cutest AI-chan in the world, and since the captain is temporarily inconvenient, I'll answer any questions you may have. Seeing this little guy who suddenly appeared, Doflamingo and his party were a little confused. Dover, are we mistaken? Toribol looked at AI with suspicion. Hey, that's rude to you. Ai shouted angrily, and then covered her face a little shyly. Although AI-chan knows that her cuteness makes it difficult for you to accept it for a while, this is the reality. Around Doflamingo's calm city, his cheeks couldn't help but shake at this moment. There should be no mistake. Such a non-rigorous thing is not done by the strong. Doflamingo suppressed the fluctuations in his heart and asked tentatively, I want to know what kind of cooperation I talked about before. This is also the main concern of Doflamingo. The so-called cooperation can only be called cooperation if it is a win-win situation. I don't know about this. AI-chan doesn't know. I need the captain to talk to you personally. Hearing Ai's words, Doflamingo's brow twitched. Then I'm afraid you don't know the distribution of benefits of cooperation, right? Yes. In Doflamingo's almost mad gaze, AI replied confidently. And what is the purpose of your appearance? Doflamingo finally couldn't help it. Was this idle boredom to entertain him? So cute, Ai said with a very cute expression. At times, Doflamingo had 10,000 grass and mud horses galloping past in his heart at the moment. Ahem. At this time, the picture changes and the image of Arthur appears in it. I'm sorry for what happened just now. I'll teach her a good lesson. Looking at the few people with iron faces, almost crazy but unable to vent, Arthur showed an apologetic smile. As for the cooperation thing, you will definitely be satisfied. Later, Arthur told Doflamingo about the initial content of the collaboration. Inside the store, you can find everything you need, and you can take any of them and set off a trend on the sea. Then use Doflamingo's existing network to sell, and I believe that the business will be booming. This is Arthur's original idea. As for the future, let's work together for a while and see. I thought you were going to sell arms to me, but it turned out to be just some goods. Doflamingo's brow furrowed. Don't underestimate these goods. The profits obtained are no less than those from the sale of arms, and we will share the profits 82. We only have 2 shares. Will it be a little too little? Doflamingo's tone was a little bad, and these 2 did seem to be much less. I sell the goods, you only need to sell them. It is completely a business-free business, and the 2% obtained is pure profit, which is already a lot. If you feel that the conditions are okay and have the intention to cooperate, then come to this position to find me. Arthur dropped a signpost, and turned off the communication. Dover, what's your decision? All eyes were on Doflamingo. The main question now is how much you can earn. The purpose of their arms sales is also to make money. And if the 20% they get is more than what they earn from selling arms, they can do it. At the very least, you don't have to worry about the supply of goods. In fact, they do not make a lot of money from selling arms. Buying arms from the Navy and then selling them to others is just a difference. Let's go over, and we have to do it if we can do it. After thinking about it for a while, Doflamingo finally made up his mind. The group sailed on a sailboat and sailed according to the route planned on the communicator. And on the other side of the sea, I'm sorry, do you know which pirate attacked the naval branch in this area? On a pirate ship, all the pirates were partying, and a faint voice sounded beside it. The pirate turned his head and saw a pheasant standing on the side of the ship at some point. It's the Navy. A voice rang out, and all the pirates immediately took up their weapons. Brush! Ice spread out from the pheasant's feet, enveloping the entire pirate ship in an instant. Yes, it's a pheasant. Seeing this ability, all the pirates remembered a terrifying name. Do any of you know about my previous question? Looking at the frozen pirates, the pheasant's expression did not change much. No. I don't know. The faces of all the pirates were filled with horror. In an instant, they were all incapacitated, and the rumors on the sea were indeed true. Oh, that's it. The pheasant replied lightly, and then turned to leave. The pheasant was driving on his bicycle on the sea, and the frozen pirate ship behind him slowly sank into the sea. This kind of scene happens in the sea continuously, until Hubrian appeared in the pheasant's line of sight. Chapter 82 on the deck of Hyperion. Some of Arthur's men were drinking afternoon tea. With Rita here, an afternoon tea is also full of rituals. Kiana sat on the stool, swaying her legs leisurely, her little head restlessly scanning around. And suddenly her eyes widened as if she had discovered a new world. Captain, come and see. There's someone riding a bicycle on the sea. Kiana suddenly pointed into the distance excitedly. Rita and May turned their heads suspiciously, and sure enough, they could see a man in a Navy uniform in the distance, pedaling a bicycle towards them. Captain, it's the Navy. Rita's eyes flashed slightly, and the corners of her mouth hooked up a faint arc. Is it the enemy? May stared at her and stood up from her seat. Wait and see. On this sea, it is possible to drive on the sea with a bicycle, and there is only one person in the Navy, Pheasant. This man who has the frozen fruit of nature. But looking at the rank on his shoulder, he is only a major general at the moment. In the middle of the sea, a pheasant rides a bicycle, and under the tires, a cold ice condenses to form a road. From a distance, it looks like a bicycle driving on the sea. The speed was not in a hurry, and he slowly came to the side of Hubelian. Seeing this ship, the pheasant was also quite surprised. There are no signs on the ship, so it is impossible to tell which side it belongs to. But it didn't matter. He just asked a question. Parking the bicycle in the middle of the sea, the pheasant jumps and wants to jump on the boat. But a palm suddenly appeared on top of his head, and the pheasant quickly unloaded and fell back onto the bicycle. I'm sorry, but no one else on my ship can get up. Arthur lay on the side of the ship and looked down at the pheasant. It's a hassle, but it's okay. The pheasant didn't care about these, scratched his head a little irritably, raised his head and asked, a few days ago, the naval branch in this sea area was attacked. Do you know any clues? It turned out that it was because of this. The Navy branch was destroyed like that, and it is understandable that the Navy headquarters sent someone to investigate. Know some clues? Arthur nodded cheerfully, which made the pheasant's eyes light up. Finally, there's some clues. Hurry up and finish it, and hurry back to sleep. But Arthur's next words made the pheasant slightly stunned. I just don't know if there are any rewards for the clues provided, and it's not easy for us businessmen to make money. Haha, just kidding. It's our duty as good citizens to help the Navy. Arthur continued with a smile. I've heard that during the time when the Navy branch was attacked, a man named Doflamingo came and went many times, and that's all I know. Arthur didn't hesitate to sell Doflamingo. Doflamingo? Okay, I see. Thank you for your help. The pheasant muttered a low word and nodded at Arthur. It doesn't matter. I hope the Navy can bring these arrests to justice as soon as possible. Otherwise, there is no sense of security at all when driving on the sea. Arthur said, the smile on his face even thicker. We will. After the pheasant finished speaking, he left. Captain, isn't it a little bad for us to betray the partner we are about to work with? Looking at the back of the pheasant fading away, Rita's eyes were filled with doubt. Don't worry, even if they know who did it, they won't dare to do it. Arthur's gaze was inexplicable, and he waved his right hand. Come on, keep afternoon tea. On the other side, the pheasant got the news and picked up the phone bug while driving through the sea. How about Major General Kazan? Have you gotten some useful clues? The voice of the steel skeleton came from the phone bug. I found some clues. It was done by a guy named Doflamingo. The name was somewhat familiar, but I couldn't remember it for a while. What did you say? Doflamingo. As soon as the voice fell, there was a sound from the phone bug that the steel-bone sky had increased several times. Don Quixote Doflamingo. Immediately, Steelbone's tone immediately became serious, and he said Doflamingo's full name. Don Quixote, the name. At this time, the pheasant finally remembered. Why did it feel a little familiar? Don Quixote, who used to be a member of the Draconians, gave up his privileges as a Draconian, but his identity as a Draco would not change. It's a bit of a tough thing to do. Cyborg paced back and forth in a room with some irritation. As a Navy, they can't take a shot at the Draconians, even if they give up their privileges. There's another thing that's weird. The voice of a pheasant came from the phone bug. I just met a strange ship calling itself a caravan on the sea, and there was no sign on it. Don't look at the pheasant always has a lazy attitude, but he doesn't let go of the slightest suspicion. Arthur's ship seemed strange to him. A ship without any signs. Steelbone's brow furrowed. This thing was indeed very strange. Any ship, be it a caravan, a pirate, or a navy, will have its own emblem. If there is no sign, it means that you want to hide your identity, or it doesn't need any logo per SE. What does that captain look like? Due to his previous suspicions, Cyborg Sora is now a little suspicious. A very ordinary galleon, 1 man and 3 women. Faint words came out from the phone city worm. You mean 1 man and 3 women? Are you sure it's 1 man and 3 women? It shouldn't be that way. A terrifying thought crossed Cyborg's mind, causing goosebumps all over his body. Yes, it's just 1 man and 3 women. What's wrong with Marshal Kong? Kazan, think about it now. Have you ever seen the faces of those people on the ship? Where does the warring states still have the heart to answer the pheasant's question now? And hurriedly asked. The urgency in his voice made the pheasant feel a little puzzled. How could I have seen it? On the wanted warrant, on the one that was issued a long time ago. The pheasant's mid-sentence was interrupted by the words added by the steel bones. On the sea, a bicycle moving slowly forward stops. Pheasant's mind quickly flashed one wanted notice after another, recalling the 4 wanted notices that his teacher Zifa had solemnly let them see. The faces above gradually coincide. Click! Around the pheasant, the cold air poured out, instantly freezing a large area. Yes, Marshal Kong, I know who he is. After the pheasant finished speaking, he put away the phone bug. The laziness on his body was swept away, and his eyes burst into bright light. And at the same time, the headquarters of the Navy. Hey, Kazan. Looking at the phone bug that was hung up, Steelbone's face changed instantly, especially the last sentence of the pheasant. It can already be determined. I didn't expect to appear in the sea again. The Arthur Pirates. Chapter 83. Captain, look at him. He's back, and he doesn't seem to be very friendly. The moment Kiana reminded her, everyone on deck had already noticed. The main thing is that the breath of the pheasant is not hidden in the slightest, like a firefly in the dark, which is impossible for people to ignore. On the sea, the pheasant has completely abandoned his bicycle. One step was taken, and before he even touched the surface of the sea, the cold air emitted from his body had already frozen the sea surface. The ice spreads out in an irregular pattern, showing the mood of the pheasant at the moment. There was a cold light in his eyes, staring closely at Arthur, who was looking at him. It's not very friendly. Arthur rubbed his chin with his right hand and frowned slightly. What exactly has happened? And why is the reaction of the pheasant so huge? Step by step, he walked dozens of meters away from Hyperion, and the pheasant's cold face was full of seriousness. Ice spread from beneath his feet, quickly freezing all of Hyperion in the sea. But even after doing so, the pheasant still didn't stop. The cold air on his body surged, and the frozen sea expanded further outward. Rear Admiral, what are you doing here? Arthur's expression gradually retracted, and it was obvious that the comber was not good. Arthur Alexander, a bounty of 100 million Bailey. Hearing these words from the pheasant's mouth, Arthur knew that his identity had been revealed, has disappeared for a long time, and his wanted film has not been updated, and he thought it would be submerged in people's memories. I didn't expect to be recognized as soon as I came out. Ryden May, a bounty of 80 million Bailey. Rita Lothweiser, 80 million Bailey. Kiana Kaslana, a bounty of 10 million Bailey. Then, the pheasant's gaze swept over the three people around Arthur. Don't mention the bounty of 10 million Bailey. It's really not in line with Miss Ben's strength. Kiana let go of her hips and shouted a little angrily. 10 million Bailey, just thinking about it, I feel a little pitiful. Normally, the Navy headquarters would set a bounty based on the danger level of a person, but for some reason, it doesn't follow this method at all when it comes to you. Pheasant said, looking at Arthur again. The reward of 100 million Bailey, once the teacher told me, it is not too much to add a zero later. Until now, the pheasant remembers the look on Zepha's face. Adoration, awe, worry, all sorts of emotions mixed together and leave only a sigh at the end. At that time, he didn't understand why his teacher had such an expression on his face. Your teacher, Zepha, how are you doing now? We've known each other for a long time. Arthur asked. Teacher, he is very good. Thank you for your concern. After the pheasant finished speaking, he continued. My teacher once told me that there's a person with the same ability as me on this sea, but the gap between us is indeed like the moon and fireflies. The pheasant's voice was slow, soft, as if it was the first time he had entered the naval headquarters, and Zepha had crossed over to the time he had spoken to him. So, I wanted to verify for myself. How strong is it? The cold air around the pheasant became more and more intense. The firmness in his eyes could be seen that this battle was inevitable. Captain, just let me do this kind of thing. Kiana volunteered to pat her chest, but was stopped by Arthur. When he finds me, let me play with him. Arthur said, leaping from Hyperion and standing in front of the pheasant. Ai-chan, open the Hyperion shield. Okay, Captain, Ai-chan received. As soon as he finished speaking, Huberly's safety body was shrouded in a pale blue passport. At the same time, not far away, Doflamingo and his party followed the signs to this place. It's so easy to use, and it reminds us of the undercurrents along the way, and I'm afraid that's all the strongest navigator can do. Tori Bull looked at the light curtain shining from the communicator on Doflamingo's wrist, and his tone was full of amazement. The price of this communicator alone is immeasurable. The glint in Doflamingo's eyes. The communicators that are casually thrown to others have such powerful abilities. So how many treasures are there in Arthur's hands? Doflamingo is now becoming more and more confident in this collaboration. Dover, what is up ahead? Diamanti pointed ahead, which was exactly the direction they were going. How can this place be frozen in ice? Looking at the cold ice that was still slowly spreading outward, doubts appeared in everyone's minds. That ship, the silhouette of a ship could be seen in the distance, and the two people next to it were like small black dots. It can be seen from this that the ability of the pheasant has affected a large range. Let's go, let's go. Doflamingo jumped from the ship and landed on the ice. The ice is really hard like land. Tori Bull spoke with surprise in his tone. It should be caused by the able. The distance was closer, and the two figures facing each other could finally be seen clearly. It's Rear Admiral Pheasant, Diamanti exclaimed. They had long heard of the Rear Admiral's name. Its strength is terrifying, and many pirates will be terrified even by hearing its name. Dover, I didn't expect them to be targeted by the people from the Navy headquarters. Tori Bull was a little worried and wanted to run away. That's interesting. Doflamingo smiled, for he could see that one of the two opposing men was calm and the other looked serious. Which is stronger and which is weak, the superior is judged. Come on, Captain. On Hyperion, Kiana shouted with a wave of her arms. Let's make a move. I've already arrived, so don't waste time. Arthur beckoned to the pheasant. So, the pheasant's eyes sank, and he took the lead. Faced with the existence that even his teacher had to be in awe, the pheasant did not dare to be careless. The ice condensed in front of him and shot out towards Arthur, and the condensed ice grew larger and larger as it approached. Do you want to freeze me? Arthur shook his head, using the same moves as the pheasant. Two clouds of ice collided between the two. Boom! The ice chips scattered, and the colliding ice grew larger and larger. The pheasant's whole body tensed, as if he had used the strength of his whole body, while Arthur on the opposite side made a move with his right hand. Another attack slashed through a half-arc towards the pheasant. What? The pheasant was shocked. Seemingly a simple collision. He had already used most of his strength, but Arthur on the opposite side still had the strength to launch a second attack. Is that really the difference? In the face of the imminent attack, the pheasant could only dodge, and its body quickly retreated. Without the support of the pheasant, the ice hockey in the middle could no longer resist. However, what everyone didn't expect was this. The puck that was forced back in Arthur's second attack collided. Boom! For a while, the ice fog was filled. Did you make a mistake? This is not only the question in the pheasant's mind, but also the doubt of the people who watched the Battle of Doflamingo and his party not far away. However, soon the answer was revealed. The ice mist dissipated, and a statue of Rita stood vividly. How is Rita? Is it pretty? Arthur turned his head and smiled at Rita. Rita loves it. Thank you, Captain. The second attack from Arthur turned into tens of thousands of thin shao ice blades the moment it collided with the ice hockey. From the outside, the ice mist is made up of ice blades. Each ice blade did its own job, and in an instant, it completed this somewhat spectacular scene. Is it really like what the teacher said? You have to reach the level of an admiral to have the strength to fight. It's just the first time he fights. Arthur forced him back like child's play, and with such strength he is now too far behind to catch up with. Chapter 84, the calm sea is somewhere covered with ice, like land. On the ice, everyone's eyes were on the ice sculpture in the middle. The ice sculpture is lifelike and lifelike, as if a real person was standing there. The captain really likes Rita a little more. On Hyperion, Kiana pouted slightly, a look of jealousy. That's something you can't help but do. This time Rita was not modest at all, and her smug appearance made Kiana even more angry, but she was helpless. The gap between us shouldn't be that big. The pheasant looked at Arthur in front of him, and he couldn't believe that the gap between the two could play with him in applause. Ice cubes, two thorn spears. The ice spear gradually coalesced above the pheasant. Whoosh! Shoot at Arthur at great speed. Alas, it's this childlike attack again, pheasant. Looking at the approaching ice spear, Arthur sighed. Pheasant, let me show you ice, how to use it. Arthur finished speaking and raised his right hand in the air. Susanu. Behind Arthur, a huge upper body condensed by ice emerged. The upper body is in the shape of a human, but it is a bone without flesh and blood. The ribs on the chest surrounded Arthur and protected him in the middle. The whole is surrounded by cold air, crystal clear like a work of art. Facing the speeding ice spear, Susaneng's hand slapped and smashed the ice spear between his palms. Oh my God, when did the captain learn such a move? Kiana's face was shocked. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Could it be that the captain is secretly practicing in secret? Kiana's gaze looked at Rita and May, and they both shook their heads. None of the three knew that it was impossible, because there will be at least one person by the captain's side 24 hours a day. What's your move? The pheasant looked at the giant in front of him in disbelief. Ice not only has the ability to freeze everything, but also has the ability to change everything. Arthur said as he said, a weapon made of ice appeared in his hand. And he, of course, is the same, and naturally refers to Susa Nunghu, who is attached to his body. This was also what Arthur suddenly thought, and suddenly opened the door to a new world. However, This Susanoo itself has a cold tenacity, and if it is given to others, it can indeed add a little defense, but for Arthur, it is a dispensable existence. The strength of the armed color it possesses is not something that ordinary people can break. But as long as there is handsomeness, this is enough. Step by step, he walked towards the pheasant, and the Susanoo on his body also moved. The tall body brings a strong, oppressive force. It's a monster, Tory Bull muttered to himself when Susano appeared. He felt like his soul was going to be frozen. Dover, we really should think about the cooperation again. However, when Tory Bull saw Doflamingo's increasingly excited face, he knew that whatever he was saying was useless. The cold air emanating from Susanoo's whole body seemed to freeze even space, which made the pheasant feel the word cold for the first time. No way. Even if you could condense the ice into what you imagined, they were just objects, and you seem to have a mind of your own. I still remember the scene where Susa Nunghu slapped his attack with both hands before. Arthur didn't do anything at the time, but Susanoo moved on his own. When you treat ice as an item, you've already lost, pheasant. As long as you believe that he is alive, he is alive. Hearing Arthur's words, the pheasant's eyes widened, and his heart was shocked beyond imagination. Susanengu's right arm was raised high, and a huge sword condensed in the palm of his hand. Brush! With the momentum of thunder, it slashed straight down. Rumble! The ice shattered, and cracks spread outward. The pheasant's body was like a kite with a broken string, and it was blown away by a huge impact. It's so strong, I actually defeated the rear admiral. Diamante's eyes widened, and his face was full of incredulity. The pheasant, like a bright star, has never missed a task from the first time. Its strong strength has terrified many pirates. And yet now, looked at the pheasant lying on the ground in embarrassment, and if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it anyway. Ahem! The pheasant struggled to his knees and coughed lightly. Although his body was not hit by the big sword, the impact like a missile still made him a little uncomfortable. Looking up, he looked at the figure standing in the distance. Can't beat it at all. His own attack was easily defused, but the opponent's attack made him so embarrassed. Do you have to give up like that? The pheasant slowly stood up. No, you can't throw in the towel. As soon as he ripped off the navy cloak on his body, the pheasant took a deep breath, and the cold air around him gradually condensed. Are you going to do a trick? Arthur raised an eyebrow and stood there watching quietly. Ice Age. The pheasant's hands spread slightly, and at the same time, a powerful cold air spread outward. Under the influence of these cold air, the sunlight in the sky became cold and biting. With the pheasant as the center, the strong cold air freezes everything. Click, click. Doflamingo and his party stood in the distance and were soon attacked. The instant cold hit them, and they didn't have time to react. Starting from the legs, the ice gradually covers the whole body, and the three of them in Hubelian were not affected in any way because of the protective shield. Sensing the chill around him, Arthur nodded in satisfaction. It's a bit of a decent feeling, but it's still a little worse. Rumble. The cold air, which was several times stronger than that of the pheasant, burst out from Arthur's body and swept out in an instant with a devastating force. Doflamingo and his party, who were still struggling, were frozen in an instant, and in the distance, the pheasant's frozen face was still filled with disbelief. Well, it's finally done. Arthur took a deep breath and came to Doflamingo's men, stretched out his finger, and tapped it on each of them. Click, click. The frozen body was full of cracks, covering the whole body like a spider's web. Boom! The ice exploded, freeing them from their frozen cages. Lead the way. This is not the place to talk, Arthur said and turned back to Hyperion, and then a brilliant sword slashed down. The frozen sea ahead of Huberian split in two. Doflamingo looked at May E, who was standing at the front of the deck with her sword sheathed. When he saw those cold eyes coming over, he hurriedly led the way ahead as fast as he could. After the last beating, May is now a haunting nightmare in Doflamingo's heart. Everyone gradually moved away, and in place, the frozen body of the pheasant stood motionless. Personal imagination is really limited, the kind of inspiration that needs to be flashed in the whole chapter, and the previous ideas have already been written. This will have a chance in the future. As long as you have that kind of thought, you might be inspired in 2 days. I'm pure and good, but what can I do? Chapter 85. This is your temporary residence. It's really chilly. Arthur shook his head as he looked at the surrounding rock-made houses. These houses are presumably built using Pika's abilities. It probably doesn't have much to do with our cooperation. Doflamingo's eyes twitched, and he sat down on the stone chair outside. In the stage of development, Doflamingo has been engaged in a career, and they do not have much requirements for the living environment. Nature doesn't matter. Arthur glanced around. The island was not large, and it was very hidden. It should have been deliberately found by Doflamingo. Sitting across from Doflamingo, Arthur spoke. What do people on the sea need right now? Weapons. Doflamingo replied directly, without hesitation. Pirates need weapons to plunder wealth. Navies need weapons to destroy pirates. And even civilians need weapons to protect their homes. War is the main theme of this sea, so weapons are even more sought after. That's why Doflamingo sells arms. In addition to the supply is a little more difficult to get, I am never afraid of not finding a buyer. You're right, but you're not entirely right. Arthur got up from his seat and looked out at the seaside in the distance. In fact, food, clothing, housing, and transportation can make a lot of profit from it. There were only weapons, and Arthur didn't intend to sell them. Although with the weapons in his hands, if they are really sold, I am afraid that the world government will beg to buy them. However, if the weapon sold is one day used by someone else to beat him, it is really a joke. Food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. But these are just the most basic needs of people. There is no shortage of those who have money, but they can't afford to buy those who don't. Doflamingo saw this very thoroughly. What you're talking about is just ordinary food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and naturally it's not competitive. Arthur smiled mysteriously and, with a wave of his right hand, placed a bottle of wine and a few glasses on the table. Taste it. Doflamingo looked at the wine bottle in front of him suspiciously, opened the lid, and suddenly a tempting aroma of wine wafted out. It's so fragrant. What kind of wine is this? Doflamingo was also a man who had seen the world, and he was sure that no wine on the sea could compare to this one. Some couldn't wait to pour a glass and groaned, and suddenly the pupils behind the sunglasses slowly expanded. What does it feel like? The entrance is soft and refreshing, like a girl's fierceness. The wine runs down the throat, slowly spreading to the limbs, and the cells of the whole body are cheering. It's tempting to have another drink. Drinking 3 glasses in a row already made him feel a little drunk. What kind of wine is this? How much of this wine do you have? A question popped up, and Doflamingo eagerly asked a second one, because he understands that this is a huge business opportunity. As long as there is a sufficient and stable supply of goods, it is difficult not to make money. The name of this wine is Emperor Drunk. How many you want? But rare is expensive. I will give you 10 jars first, 2 of which you can use for free publicity. In order to strive for the maximum benefit, upfront publicity is indispensable. Only by letting the majority of people know the taste of this liquor can it be sold at a higher price. No problem. I have some news here for the gathering between the nobles. How much are you going to sell this wine for? This is the core issue, and the price is also related to the distribution of benefits after Doflamingo. 1 million. Although the price of 1 million is a bit expensive, I believe that there will still be many people who buy it. Although many people lived in poverty on this sea, the nobles lived in extreme luxury. 1 million is a drop in the bucket for them. No, 1 million cups. Arthur said as he slowly poured himself a glass, gestured to Doflamingo, and drank it all. Arthur then gave Doflamingo the 10 jars of wine and told him where the island was. If you run out of wine, go to the island and find him. Although there were only 10 jars of wine, Arthur was confident that Doflamingo would get the most out of it. Dover, a glass of wine, 1 million. I'm afraid even those nobles can't take out much. Toribol looked at the distant shadow of the Hobelian ship and saw the glass of wine in his hand in disbelief. 1 million glasses of wine. This is simply more lucrative than their arms business. It's my pattern that is small, and 1 million glasses can be worthy of the value of this imperial wine. Doflamingo looked down at a book in his hand. On the importance of packaging Huberian's living room. Captain, why don't we sell it ourselves? Kiana asked the question that had been held in her mind for a long time. The reason is simple. The first is who we are, and the second is that we don't have any connections at the moment, and it takes too long to start everything from scratch. Besides, wouldn't it be nice to have someone else work for us? Arthur said as a wine bottle appeared on the table in front of him. This bottle is small and delicate, made of jade, and the value of the bottle alone is already very expensive. And it's also to test the abilities of Doflamingo's party. Pick up the glass and pour it slowly, and the clear wine carries the steaming water into the glass below. A heartwarming aura spreads outward. If you want to make money, you have to take the high-end route. Arthur uses mid-range wine to open the market first, check the reaction, and then the real layout. He's going to make it impossible for everyone on the sea to live without him. Oh, Kiana nodded as if she didn't understand. A smile tugged at Arthur's lips. To dominate the world, you don't have to stand at the pinnacle of power. Chapter 86. Inside the Navy headquarters, a tall figure shuttled rapidly through the flow of people. General Scythe. As soon as the Navy he saw wanted to say hello, Scythe's figure had already disappeared from his eyes. Rushed to the medical room as fast as he could. Kuzan, Kuzan. The loud shouts captured everyone in the medical room. Scythe, be quiet. There are other patients here. The voice of Steelbone's reprimand came from a distance, but Scythe's gaze fell directly on the pheasant on the hospital bed next to him. How could it be? Lying on the hospital bed, the pheasant's whole body was still covered by ice, and Scythe rushed over with an arrow step, his face full of incredulity. As a natural frozen devil fruit powerhouse, how could he be frozen by ice? Don't worry, Scythe. After inspection, Major General Kazan is fine. It's all frozen like this, and it says it's okay. Hearing Steelbone's words, Scythe's eyes immediately widened like bull's eyes. Don't you even believe the doctor? Steelbone's tone suddenly became stern, which made Scythe slowly suppress the excitement in his heart. Cyborg sighed and continued. Outwardly, Major General Kazan is frozen, but in fact it is not completely frozen. According to the test, this layer of ice outside is like a cage that binds Major General Kazan, making him unable to move his whole body. As long as he breaks it, there will be no problem. I see. Hearing Steele's explanation, Scythe understood and breathed a sigh of relief. Then what are you doing, stunned? Hurry up and break the shell. As soon as Scythe said it, he saw the slightly wrinkled expression of the steel bones and hurriedly stopped his mouth. This is not ordinary ice, and there is domineering energy entwined in it, which cannot be broken in ordinary ways. If you use brute force in case Major General Kazan on the side is injured, it will be worth the loss. Scythe scratched his head, a little embarrassed. If you can save Kazan, I'm afraid that Steelbone Kong would have done that a long time ago. Is there no other way? When you see the pheasant on the hospital bed, do you have to lie here all the time? It's been a while since Major General Kazan came back. The ice is slowly melting, and the domineering spirit circulating in it is gradually dissipating, and it should be out of trouble in a few days. Hearing the words of the steel bones, Scythe breathed a sigh of relief. Then the yellow ape and the red dog also rushed over, and when they saw the appearance of the pheasant, they were all shocked and inexplicable. They couldn't be clearer about the pheasant's strength. But now that he has become like this, how strong is the person who defeated him? It's terrifying. What kind of opponent did Kazan meet? The yellow ape had a frightened expression on his face, while the red dog next to him had a serious gaze. The Navy is about to face a powerful enemy, and their strength is still too weak. Scythe watched here for a while and was called out by Cyborg. It was my fault that Major General Kazan was seriously injured. Walking out of the medical room, Steel Gukong was the first to blame himself. Marshal Kong, who was the enemy? So far, Scythe didn't know the specific reason, but today he suddenly heard that the pheasant was injured, so he hurried over. On this sea, Kazan is only a major general, but ordinary people can't hurt him at all, especially in the North Sea. Steelbone shook his head as he spoke, his face gradually becoming solemn. It's the Arthur pirates, and Rear Admiral Kazan met the Arthur pirates in the North Sea. Zifa, who was standing next to the Steelbone sky, was shocked when he heard this name. Arthur's pirates. How long has it been since he'd heard the name? Are you really sure it's the Arthur pirates? The memories that had been sealed in Zifa's mind gradually revived. Crowned in the world, domineering, it is the only figure. It's not certain yet, but it's 80% certain. Cyborg said with a sigh. When Major General Kazan wakes up, everything will be revealed. After Steelbone Kong finished speaking, he shook his head and turned to leave. Zifa stood in place, and the shock in his heart could not be dissipated for a long time. If the Arthur pirates reappear on the seas, will their navy now have enough strength to fight a fight? On the other side, Doflamingo was on his way to a banquet held by a nobleman, using his channels. Dover, you've been reading this book for most of the day. Have you gained anything? Tory Bowl moved his body and slowly came to Doflamingo's side. It was the first time in a long time that they had seen Doflamingo reading a book, and it had been so long. Did I get the crystal bottle you prepared? Doflamingo asked, closing the book. It's done. Tory Bowl pulled out a palm-sized crystal bottle from behind him. The homogeneous body is made of crystal, which is crystal clear. Good. Doflamingo took the crystal bottle, opened a jar next to it, and filled the crystal bottle until it was 80% full. How much do you think a vial like this can sell? The wine is like a dream in the crystal bottle. By looking at the book in his hand, Doflamingo understood the value of packaging. No matter how good the wine in the jar is, as long as it is not opened, no one else will notice. But when you change the container of a crystal bottle, it is completely different, and it instantly improves several grades. If a cup is worth 1 million Baileys, there are at least 7 or 8 cups in this small bottle. This bottle is priced at 10 million Baileys. Without continuing to let them guess, Doflamingo directly stated his price. Ignoring the shocked gazes of the 3 people in front of him, he continued. The next thing to do is to pour all the wine into the crystal bottle. Doflamingo's party was busy, getting closer and closer to the venue of the banquet. Holding the crystal bottle in his hand with 2 fingers, Doflamingo's eyes were deep. It can be expected that the protagonist of tonight's banquet is now in his hands. At the same time, on the calm sea, Hyperion moved forward slowly. In the living room, Arthur had just finished 10 rounds of replenishment, and a faint smile appeared on his face when he looked at the 15 character fragments that were still missing. 15 character shards. If you're lucky, you can draw them once, and if you're unlucky, 2 times is completely enough. When the time comes, the lawgiver of emptiness will descend upon this sea. It's really full of anticipation. Captain, we found a super pretty island, like a fountain. The door opened, and Kiana hurriedly untied it, pulling Arthur out without saying a word. Captain, you will be amazed when you see it. This is the first time you have encountered such a beautiful island. Kiana pulled Arthur onto the deck and pointed ahead with her right hand. Captain, look pretty. Isn't it beautiful? Directly in front of Hyperion, a small island that resembles a fountain rises in the middle of the sea. It's really beautiful, and it has a nice name. What's the name? Kiana, Rita, and May all looked at each other. The capital of water. Chapter 87. It's really lively here, and this thing called water meat is also delicious. On some narrow roads, Kiana weaves through the crowd and is amazed by everything around her. The 3 people behind him all smiled when they saw Kiana like this. Captain, this is for you. Rita and May have a part to do. Kiana turned around and shoved the water, and meat, which she felt was very delicious, into the hands of the 3 of them. Kiana, do you know whose favorite food is water, and meat? Arthur looked at the elastic water and flesh in front of him, and his eyes couldn't help but fall on Kiana's chest opposite. Captain, where are your eyes looking? Kiana folded her hands to her chest, but she was still curious about Arthur's words. Captain, who did you just say is this water meat your favorite food? Kiana couldn't help but lean forward and asked. No, this is it. Arthur pointed to Blue, who was marching in a nearby river. Blue is the means of water transportation in this water capital. Captain, You're so annoying, saying bad things about people in a different way. Kiana slapped Arthur in dissatisfaction. Woohoo! Just then, from a high place above, a blue rushed down, passed in front of Arthur and them, and sailed into the distance. This is also one of the games that many people love to play. The waterway rushes down from the top, but it's exciting. Captain, shall we play with this? Kiana was instantly interested when she saw it. Okay, you can play anything. A group of 4 people appreciated the water and soil customs of the water capital, slowly walked towards the heights, and finally rented 2 blues and rushed straight down from above. Wow! Oh, Kiana, who was at the front, opened her arms and shouted all the way to attract the attention of many people. And in the midst of these streams, looking at the fleeting figure in the river next to him, Riley took the wine bottle in his hand and suddenly paused. Was it just dazzling? That fleeting face was deeply etched in Riley's mind. It must have been dazzling. Riley shook his head, a little incredulous, but the pace of progress was much faster. Weaving through the flow of people, we arrived at a dock. Here is the famous Roger Pirates of the Sea, and sitting opposite Roger is Tom the Fishman Horn Fishman. Tom, known as the world's #1 boatright. And Roger's purpose for coming here is self-evident, just to ask Tom to build a ship for them. When sailing on the sea, the ship is an important means of transportation, and it is always faced with various difficult environments. So, it is a top priority. Roger came to visit Tom in person. Riley, why have you been out for so long? Haha, Horelli, you can't be secretly drinking halfway, are you? Next to Roger, Spark laughed. The wine has been bought. Riley glared at Spark viciously and put the wine in her hand in front of Roger, looking like she wanted to say something. It's just that now Roger is preoccupied with shipbuilding and doesn't notice. Master Tom, please be sure to accede to your request, Roger said, holding up the wine glass in front of him. According to what you say about sailing, there's only one kind of wood in the world that is more suitable. For Tom, since someone commissioned him to build a ship, he would say yes. It doesn't matter what the identity of the other person is. The ship is innocent. There is no good or bad. What kind of wood is it? If it is lacking, we will go out and find it immediately. Roger hurriedly asked. The name is the treasure tree atom. As for going out to find it, it is not in this water city, but it is not free. You need to pay for it. That's for sure. Roger nodded, drank the wine glass in his hand, and the matter was settled. Riley, you've had some preoccupations along the way. Did something happen? After talking about the ship on the way back to his residence, Riley's anomaly was finally caught by Roger. When I went out just now, I seemed to have found an acquaintance. Riley's brow furrowed. The fleeting figure made him unsure if what he was seeing was wrong. When you meet an acquaintance, why do you have a ghost-like expression? Spark asked, a little confused. You may not believe it, but I just ran into the Arthur pirates. As soon as the words fell, the 3 of them turned into the hotel they had booked before. The steps stopped in place, looking in the same direction. At the counter, Arthur and his party were buying a room. Seeing Roger, Arthur was not surprised. Since Riley was able to see him at that time, Arthur naturally discovered Riley. The surprise had already passed at that time. When he came to the water capital, Arthur could guess what Roger wanted to do, and there was no conflict of interest between the two. He nodded at Roger, then looked at the waiter in front of him. A large suite, which was a deposit for 3 days. After paying the money and taking the keys, the group of 4 went upstairs. Arthur, I ran into it here. Looking at the figure walking upstairs, Roger's eyes widened. I didn't expect the Locks pirates to disband, and after such a long time, they met again. And the strength of Arthur and his party, now he still can't see through it. It's unfathomable. Luckily, I wasn't dazzled, and it turned out to be the Arthur pirates. Riley was relieved at this time. At first, I thought I was dizzy. How did they end up here? Could it be that they're also looking for Master Tom to build a ship? In this water city, there may be only one thing that can catch the attention of the Arthur pirates. Whatever the purpose of their visit, as long as it doesn't conflict with our interests, leave it alone. For Arthur, Roger is very vigilant. At the same time, in the sea far away from the water capital, several warships slowly sailed forward. Report to Lieutenant General Carp. I have received definite information that the Roger pirates have been spotted in the water capital ahead. Without the Rocks pirates, the Roger pirates are now the biggest target of their navy. Carp, on the other hand, has been hunting down Roger. The city of water, Roger, where are you running this time? Looking ahead, Carp grinned and whispered a low voice from his mouth. All warships, sailing at full speed, target the capital of water. At the sound of an order, the speed of all warships suddenly increased. At this rate, it won't be long before you reach the city of water. At this time, Carp didn't know that Arthur was also in the water city at the moment. Chapter 88 on a calm sea. A huge luxury cruise ship slowly moves forward. There are many ships from all directions rushing in the direction of luxury cruise ships, and among the many ships, Doflamingo is among them. Pika, you stay and watch the ship, Tori Pole, Diamanti, and the three of us each take a few bottles to the feast. Doflamingo said as he carried a few bottles of wine they had filled into his arms. Okay, Dover. The three of them nodded, each doing their part. The closer you get, the more you realize the enormity of this luxury cruise ship. Ordinary sailboats approach like ants at the feet of elephants. On the side of the cruise ship, there is a special port for mooring, and Doflamingo enters it in order. There were special guards at the gate to receive them. Doflamingo took an invitation and threw it over, and the three of them entered the banquet smoothly. The eye catches the eye with a large, lavishly decorated living room with a staggered flow of people. There are places to dance, places to rest, places to eat, and various entertainment facilities are distributed around to satisfy anyone's needs. If ordinary people see this scene, they will definitely be shocked by this prosperous scene. As everyone knows, under this prosperous appearance, many transactions in the sea are carried out here. The host of this banquet was named Pico Paisius, and he was the largest merchant in the sea. Many arms deals, slave trades, and bribes for the navy could be carried out with him. Compared to the scale of Doflamingo's current fledgling, it is nothing compared to the size of the game. Every once in a while, a banquet is held on the sea, and some famous people are invited. The huge ship would go around several countries and return to its original location, which would end the voyage. During this time, countless people got on board and countless people disembarked, and millions of trades spread out from the center. Doflamingo stood in the doorway and glanced around, and there were already many people who were already eager to trade. Let's go. This time, the three of them came to promote the sake they had, so they went straight to the point and came to the rest area. There are also many people who know Doflamingo. After all, the arms business has allowed him to accumulate a certain amount of contacts. It's just that for these people, Doflamingo doesn't have time to pay attention to them now. The three of them glanced at each other, smiled, found a seat to sit down after a while, and then took out the crystal bottle from their arms. Gently unscrew the lid, and the tantalizing aroma slowly spreads outward. Pick up a wine cup and pour yourself a glass and taste it carefully. The people around the three of them who were still talking about business stopped their movements, followed the aroma of wine, and couldn't help but look over. Seeing the three of them tasting with relish, they couldn't help but move their index fingers, and then slowly leaned over. The three Doflamingo were also very generous, and some people said they wanted to taste it, so they poured them a glass. Slowly, the aroma of the wine became more and more intense, and more people gathered around the three of them. And such a change finally attracted the attention of the ship's owner. In one of the rooms at the top of the ship, a middle-aged man in a neat suit looked ahead. On the huge screen, dense images appeared. These were all filmed with film and television phone bugs. Movie phone bugs are all over the ship and can make everyone hide. What's going on here? With a frown, Peak rang the bell next to him. Master Paisius, I wonder what you command. The door opened, and a tuxedo-clad attendant pushed the door open and saluted respectfully to Pico Paisius, who was standing in front of the screen. Let's find out what's causing the commotion in the C3 area. Yes, Master Paisius. The squire nodded, turned away, and opened the door again a moment later. An extra glass of wine in my hand, compared to before. Peak, who was staring at the screen, turned his head the moment the door opened. It was the aroma of wine that surrounded the tip of his nose that he couldn't ignore. Master Pasius. The attendant raised his hands respectfully above his head and carefully handed the glass of wine to Peak. The lowered head took a deep breath. Working on this ship for such a long time, the knowledge is naturally incomparable, but the glass of wine in front of you is indeed extremely rare. The smell alone is intoxicating, but what would it taste like if you took a sip? But such an idea can only be thought of. Peak took the glass, put it to the tip of his nose, and sniffed it gently. What kind of taste is it? The smell alone had already made his calm heart gradually become restless. He placed the glass between his lips and took a sip. Rao is a man who has seen the wind and rain and experienced the ups and downs of the world, and he is a little distracted at this moment. The faint drink shot through his heart like a human beauty, and then gently caressed his wound. Did the wound still matter? No, it doesn't matter anymore. As long as you can look at her, nothing in the world is worth it. Peak stared blankly at the empty wine glass in his hand, and he drank the wine for half an hour. At this moment, the hall was surrounded by the aroma of wine, and everyone's eyes were focused on the crystal bottle in Doflamingo's hand. The purpose of boarding the ship seemed to have been forgotten at this moment. In the middle of the room, a somewhat distracted Peak withdrew his gaze and walked out slowly. In the hall, Doflamingo refused to anyone who had drunk the first drink and wanted a second one. "How much wine do you have there?" "I want it all." A middle-aged man dressed in a gorgeous pot-bellied poop and covered in expensive jewelry crowded in front of Doflamingo. The fat palm slapped on the table, and the words that were spoken silenced the noise around him a little. "It's Prince Doman." With Prince Doman's financial resources, it is more than enough to buy some wine. Seeing the person standing in front of Doflamingo, there was a lot of talk around. "Bought them all? You're really a big mouthful." Doflamingo sat on a stool, his crystal bottle dangling in his hands. "Humph. There's nothing I can't buy for Prince Doman, so you can make a price." As soon as Doman said this, the surroundings suddenly fell silent, and everyone wondered, how much does this wine cost? "This bottle is 10 million Bailey. I don't know how many bottles you need for Prince Doman." Doflamingo looked up at Prince Doman, whose face was gradually becoming ugly, and a hint of mockery appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Hiss!" Hearing the offer, everyone couldn't help but gasp. 10 million Baileys are only a small bottle, which is worth more than gold. Are you kidding me? Doman's pig-like cheeks jumped fiercely. Although he was very rich, he was still unwilling to spend 10 million Bailey on such a small bottle of things. "If you don't have the money, don't stand in the way of anyone who wants to buy it." Faint words came out of Doflamin's brother's mouth, not giving Doman the slightest face. "You're looking for death." Doflamingo Doman in front of him also knew him. A little arms dealer dared to talk to him like that, and he had to be given some color. But before the right arm that had just been raised had fallen, the thigh-thick arm broke away from his shoulder and flew out. The air around them was silent, and then the crowd suddenly fell into a panic. They're just some businessmen or aristocrats, and they don't have much force themselves, and they just rely on the bodyguards they bring with them. It's just that they were all left on their respective ships. No one would have imagined that such a bloody scene would happen on this ship. Oblivious to everything around him, Doflamingo remained seated and flicked his fingers at the thin line of blood that lay across his eyes. You're actually..." Prince Doman's face turned pale in pain, and he looked at Doflamingo in disbelief. "Humph. Garbage-like existence." Doflamingo stood up from his seat and looked at Prince Doman in front of him, his eyes like an ant. Cold and unforgiving. In front of Arthur, Doflamingo has always behaved very well. There is no way to do it. In the face of strong strength, he cannot be presumptuous. But he was, after all, Doflamingo, a mere prince. "Scold. I'm afraid it's not good to do something like this on my turf." In the distance, Peak Pasius approached with the guards. The scattered guards immediately calmed the crowd's emotions. Seeing the visitor, a smile tugged at the corner of Doflamingo's mouth. 10 million Bailey. Do you want it?" Doflamingo said as a crystal bottle appeared again in his hand. Peak Pasius stared at Doflamingo for a long time, and a word came out of his mouth. "Yes," although there had been a bloody incident just now. Everyone soon calmed down and began to look for buyers or sellers as usual. It's just that most of the attention is on Doflamingo. So a small bottle actually sold for 10 million Bailey. And the most important thing is that someone still bought it and bought 5 bottles at once. As Doflamingo and his party sailed along the cruise, the news of the gold wine in his hand gradually spread. Chapter 89, The Capital of Water. Are you sure you found the traces of Roger and his party here? On a wide street, Carp was dressed in a vice admiral's attire and followed by several Navy men, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Yes, Lieutenant General Carp. The Navy next to him nodded affirmatively. Scatter and scatter to seek. Carp waved his hand, and the Navy behind him suddenly scattered outward. At the same time, the Navy outside also took action and entered the water capital one after another. As far as the eye can see, you can see the Navy shuttling back and forth on the street. And inside a hotel, Arthur has a panoramic view through the window. Sure enough, where there's Roger, there's Carp. Arthur shook his head, ignoring this. It's not coming to him. Just sit back in peace. Captain, morning tea has been brewed. Rita's voice came from behind her, and Arthur answered, turning and sitting down on the couch. Captain, you're so early. The door opened, and Kiana yawned and walked out. Sleepy-eyed, he sat down next to Arthur. With a crooked neck, he leaned on Arthur and continued to sleep. Now that you're up, wash your face and sober up. For the state of Kiana, a little confused worm, Arthur shook his head helplessly. No, Captain, I'm sleepy. Let me sleep a little longer. Kiana hugged Arthur, rubbed her little head, and found a comfortable position. Looking at this, it seems that you won't be able to get up for a while. But Arthur didn't get used to it, and with a strong pair of arms, he carried Kiana to the bathroom. Phew! Ah, Captain, wake up, you're fully awake. Kiana's voice could be heard in the bathroom begging for mercy. Compared with Arthur's side, in another room in the same hotel, he had a dignified face at the moment. These navies are really haunted, and they follow them wherever they go. Spark looked at the Navy shuttling back and forth below, and looked at Roger, who was sitting next to him. Captain Roger, these navies have been roaming around the city, and it looks like we'll only be able to stay in the hotel today. Spark sat down in his chair a little bored. Let him stay in such a small room all day without going out. It is estimated that he is about to suffocate. How can he have energy? No, I can't. Roger shook his head and stood up. The advent of the Navy has affected the progress of Master Tom's shipbuilding. Now that Carp knows we're here, he won't give up if he doesn't find us. As a result, shipbuilding will be slower and slower. Roger said and shook his head. Captain, what do you mean? A smile tugged at the corners of Riley's mouth, and even the listless Spark on the side regained some energy. Let's go. Let's get these navies out of the way so Master Tom can concentrate on his work. Picking up the cloak hanging aside, Roger opened the door and walked out, followed by Riley and Spark. Spot the Roger pirates, grab him, and don't let them run away. Arthur, who was quietly enjoying a meal in the room, was stopped by a voice coming from the window. Huh, Captain, what's going on out there? Kiana still hasn't figured out the situation. The Navy is just catching pirates. Arthur said unconcernedly, Are you going to fight? Kiana's eyes suddenly burst into a sparkling light. It has nothing to do with us. Just finish breakfast quietly. Oh well. Hearing Arthur's words, Kiana instantly wilted, and her expression became a little sluggish. If you really want to join in the fun, finish your meal before you go. Kiana's originally depressed expression instantly came to her senses, and she gobbled up the food in front of her. Be careful. Got it, Captain. Kiana nodded excitedly and jumped out of the window next to her. One idle guy. Arthur shook his head, speechless. Captain, May went up and took a look. For Kiana, May is still a little worried. Well, that's fine. Arthur nodded. There were fewer people, and Arthur quickly swept away the food in front of him and then leaned back on the sofa in satisfaction. On the sea, several warships are chasing and intercepting a pirate group. Roger, just tie your hands. You will never be able to escape today. As Carp, who was standing on the deck, spoke, he grabbed a cannonball in his right hand and smashed it at Roger. Ha ha, you've said that many times. Faced with the flying cannonballs, Roger drew his short knife and slashed forward. The sword key mixed with domineering swept outward. Bang, bang, bang. The cannonballs exploded one after another, but they didn't even touch the corner of Roger's clothes. "You're still so strong, Roger. I'd love to fight you one-on-one." Cannonballs don't pose much danger to Roger, and Carp knows that. Is it going to be one now? The two of them looked at each other and smiled at the same time. They're playing out feelings and identify with each other. If you want to fight, you have to pass this level first. All of them aim fire. Although the two of them were full of affection, they did not spare any hands when they fought. Carp gave the order, and dozens of shells came at him. And among these shells, several shells are faster than the others. The main thing is that there is also an armed color domineering attached to them. "The old attacks won't work against me, Carp." On top of the short knife, the color of the armament was entangled, and the oncoming cannonballs were cut in half one by one. "It's really fierce." At the very top of the water city, Kiana stared down, and she could see any scene of the battle in the sea. "Kiana, just take a look. Don't get involved and make trouble for the captain." Just when Kiana was a little eager to try, Mei's figure appeared next to her. "Got it. Mei, do you think I'm like the kind of person who likes to find trouble?" Kiana sighed decadently. Such a fun thing can only be watched from the side. And at the same time, in the living room of the hotel, Arthur, who was sitting on the sofa, opened the system interface, and the friendship points were just enough at this time. Open the lottery interface with a familiar road. There are still 15 character fragments left, so let me get into the soul. Tap 10 supplies. Suddenly, a cloud of light appeared in front of him. Just right, 15 character shards. Seeing this scene, Arthur's heart could not contain the joy welling up. Immediately opened the Valkyrie warehouse and found Kiana Kaslana. Bring up the personal interface. Kiana Kaslana, character shard 50/50, upgradable. Arthur stretched out his index finger and slowly clicked on the promotion button. Chapter 90, on the beach along the coast of the water capital. The two sides are far away. "Roger, what are you doing?" Carp was surprised to see Roger on the other side. The initial naval battle was expected to be Roger driving away in a boat, but he just wandered around. After a circle around the water capital, I returned here. Didn't you say we haven't fought for a long time? And now I fulfill your wish." Roger grinned slowly. Now Master Tom is building a ship. If he leaves the water city now, Carp and his party will be chasing after him, and it will be difficult to come back when the time comes. On top of that, the current ship can no longer support them to continue sailing. "Come on, Carp." Roger drew the short knife at his waist and attached the color of the armament to it. The breeze blows, and the cloak behind a hunts. "Ha ha, don't make a move." With a word of advice to the Navy behind him, Carp stepped forward and came across from Roger. The two looked at each other, pulled off their cloaks at the same time, and rushed forward with smiles on their faces. Boom! The collision of long knives and iron fists swept outward with great force, shaking the navies back again and again. The two of them are fighting, and it is estimated that they will not be able to tell the winner for a while. Riley stood beside him, looking at the two men fighting each other, muttering to himself. Spark nodded sympathetically. Along the way, they often encountered Carp, and battles were even more frequent. Roger and Carp were half-pounded in tails, and they really fought, and it was difficult to tell the winner for a while. And things went just as they had expected. Carp and Roger are completely in a hard-to-go way, and every time they collide, a powerful force strikes outward, mess up the area. And the two people who fought against each other were enjoying themselves. "You haven't played in a few days, Carp. You're getting weaker." Roger grinned and looked at Carp opposite, and between the two of them, their eyes met, full of emotion. "This is just the beginning, Roger, and watch out for your knife being shattered by my punch." After a brief conversation, the two attacked again. However, at this moment, the surrounding space fluctuated slightly. Carp and Roger were slightly stunned. This subtle change, they had already captured it, but the attack had been issued, and it was impossible to stop it now. However, what people didn't expect was that the attacks from both sides directly penetrated the bodies of the two people. It was as if they were standing in front of them, as if they were a phantom. "What's going on?" Riley also noticed the anomaly at the first time, and his sharp gaze swept around. You can see that everywhere you look, the space is changing slightly. The slightly distorted space makes many people feel a little uncomfortable. and this influence envelopes the entire water capital in it. The original life of the water city was shattered in an instant, was walking leisurely on the street, but the next second it had run to other places. The fluctuations of space make the water capital seem to be full of spatial passages everywhere, and it is chaotic in an instant. In the dockyard, Master Tom, who was building a ship, discovered an anomaly. Everybody stands still and don't move. Master Tom was still very prestigious, and when the voice came out, everyone stopped. For those who stood still, these spatial fluctuations did not affect them in any way. In one of the hotel's rooms, Arthur looked out through the window. "Is it finally going to start? Let's go, Rita," Arthur said as he hugged Rita, taking advantage of the fluctuations in the space around him, and disappeared in place in an instant. The sky slowly became gloomy as spatial fluctuations stirred up everything. At this moment, the battle between Roger and Carp had stopped, and the fluctuations around them made them dare not act rashly. "What happened?" Carp frowned. He really couldn't figure it out. He glanced at Roger and began to trace the source of the spatial fluctuations. And Riley is doing the same thing. There it is. It turned out to be her. Riley's gaze looked at the apex of the lower water city, where two figures stood. The surrounding spatial fluctuations emanated from one of them. Kiana stood at the apex of the water capital, her gaze slightly closed, and faint spatial fluctuations spread outward from her body. What kind of ability is this? Roger's gaze was fixed on Kiana, and Roger felt a very dangerous aura from her. When I encountered such an aura when I checked into the hotel, I obviously didn't feel anything. It's her. Seeing Kiana and May next to her, Carp's pupils dilated slightly. After the disbandment of the Locks pirates, the Arthur pirates disappeared and were never seen on the seas again. Such a terrifying person was pressed by Carp in the deepest part of his heart, and he didn't want to think about it again. However, I didn't expect that at this moment, I would meet two of the Arthur pirates here. So are the other two also in this water city? Carp's face suddenly became a little ugly. It is necessary to report this matter to the Navy headquarters as soon as possible to take precautions. As time passed, the spatial fluctuations that spread throughout the water city gradually disappeared. But the spatial fluctuations around Kiana did become more and more violent. The violence made it impossible for May to stay by her side, and she retreated some distance. All eyes fell on Kiana. Spatial fluctuations surround the surroundings, as if Kiana existed in another time and space at this time, which made people look unreal. It reminds me of Edward Newgate. Feeling the power of space emanating from Kiana, Roger's eyes were heavy. Edward's mere possession of the power of shattered space is enough to shock people and become the supremacy of the seas. And now, Roger feels that Kiana has not only the power to shatter space, but control. You can control the space. As soon as such an idea came to him, Roger's eyes were full of horror. The spatial fluctuations surrounding Kiana quickly condensed and then burst out violently. A pillar of light shot up into the dark clouds above. In this dark cloud, somewhat dimly lit space, this pillar of light became the only light. Bright, dazzling, dazzling. In the entire water capital, everyone's eyes were focused on this pillar of light. After more than 10 seconds, the pillar of light gradually shortened from top to bottom, and the shortened light became more and more dazzling. In the midst of this light, a figure gradually emerged. The body is suspended in the void, the long white hair fluttering in the wind behind the back, and the spear of the sub-sky behind it is ready to pierce everything. The slightly closed eyes opened, and the golden eyes were as calm as an abyss, full of indifference. At this moment, the law of emptiness has descended into another world. Chapter 91, the spatial fluctuations in the water city have all dissipated, but everyone's eyes have not taken their eyes off. Looking at the figure suspended in midair, what's that? Carp looked at Kiana, and the memories in his mind were turned over. The original Kiana bounty was set at 10 million Bailey because she was not seen when she was fighting the Arthur pirates. And in the Valley of the Gods, Kiana is not active on the battlefield, so the bounty is set very low. And yet now, seeing Kiana at this time, Although there was not the slightest fluctuation emanating from the surroundings, it made him feel very dangerous. The same is true for Roger next to him. Those golden eyes looked at them like a swarm of ants. After a while, Kiana in the sky finally moved. The suspended body seemed to be adapting to the power in the body and slowly raised its right hand. The spear of Yakong behind him moved, and the side of it was hovering like the most sincere guard, waiting for the queen's order. With a flick of his finger, the spear of Akong shot out like an arrow from a string towards Karp. In an instant, they crossed the distance between the two sides, leaving an afterimage in the sky, and they were already in front of Karp. In the face of such a swift attack, Karp did not dare to resist and dodged to the side at the last moment. Burst! The spear of Akong shot into the ground without causing a loud sound and shuttled through the ground like a loach, rushing out in an instant, rushing towards Karp again. And Roger, on the other side, Kiana did not let him be idle. Once again, he commanded a spear of Akong and charged away. In the face of the oncoming attack, Roger's short knife was surrounded by armed colors, and it collided with it directly. Boom! Immediately, Roger felt a huge amount of power enter him through the short knife. This power carried a sharp aura, which made his face change slightly. The two sides were at a stalemate for a while, and the spear of Yakong was the first to leave, circling in midair and attacking from the side again. The sudden loss of strength made Roger's right hand tremble slightly, but it had recovered in an instant. I didn't expect that little Yakong spear to burst out with such tremendous power. Seeing the attack coming again, Roger's face was solemn, and he blocked it step by step. I no longer dare to fight with all my strength as I did at the beginning. Kiana's hand flicked slightly, and the attack of the spear of Akuna became sharper and sharper. Mei, who was standing not far away, watched all this and couldn't help but show a look of amazement in her eyes. The attack of the spear of the Archon alone can exhaust a vice admiral and a famous pirate on the sea. Kiana has also become very powerful now. Captain, in the distance, Rita and Arthur approached. Kiana should be familiar with her powers by now. Arthur smiled and looked at Roger and Carr below. Let them be guinea pigs. Kiana's attacks continued, and the sharper attacks made Roger and Karp fight back more and more fiercely. Roger, it's not a way for us to defend passively like this. We have to get close to the main body. Karp yelled. Although they can resist for the time being, it will be a long time. Physical exertion puts them in increasingly dangerous situations. What are you going to do? Roger also knew that they were in danger now. It's very simple. Let your people help me resist for the time being. As he spoke, Karp rushed towards Riley. I'll leave this to you. Help me fend it off for a while. Seeing the spear of Akong rushing straight towards him, Riley had a sentence in his heart that he didn't know whether to talk about it or not. He had to do it now. Taking advantage of a short time that was won over, Karp jumped up and chased in the direction of Kiana. Month's step. One of the 6 styles is to step on the air with strong foot force to produce a strong air retention force. And you can walk in the air like stepping on stairs, but you can't stay in the air for too long. Cap stepped on the air and rushed towards Kiana, believing that as long as the distance was close, there would be a way. But, roar! Behind Kiana, a dragon-like creature soars into the sky. Benares, the lawgiver of the void's judgment-level companion Honkaman. Benares has the same abilities as Caligara, with the same appearance but slightly different colors, one with consciousness and the other with non-consciousness. What is this? The sight of the dragon-like creature rushing towards him. Its sharp claws and sharp teeth let him know that it would never be pleasant to be touched. Can only change direction to dodge. Oh, what a bonus! Seeing Benares, a smile tugged at Arthur's lips. No matter how fast Karp's dodge speed in midair, how could he be Benares' opponent? He only struggled for a while before he was hit headlong. It fell from the sky like a meteor and smashed into the ground. Boom! A huge pit was smashed out. In the dusty pit, Karp crawled out, looking a little embarrassed. Looking up, he was relieved to see that Benares was not chasing after him. Benares circled in the sky and flew slowly towards Kiana. As he approached, his whole body shimmered and he took on a human form. He has long gray hair, sky blue pupils, and a feather-like ornament on his head like Selene. He wears a small white coat resembling a small waistcoat, decorated with a purple four-pointed star on his chest, and has a long hem that hangs down to the knees. He wears long black gloves with white armor and purple fingers. He wears black hot pants and white stockings with purple heels. Her Majesty stopped in front of Kiana and knelt on one knee in submission. Bella, long time no see. A faint voice came from Kiana's mouth, and she reached out her right hand and touched Benares's head. Leave it to me. Walking slowly in mid-air is like stepping on an invisible staircase. How is that possible? Carp's eyes were about to pop out when he saw this. Compared to the moon step, Kiana is like a leisurely stroll. Step by step, the energy around the body surged, and the skirt fluttered everywhere behind him. Black holes emerged behind Kiana. The aura of destruction instantly enveloped this side of the world. Oh no, run! Roger and Carp were startled and immediately beckoned to their own people, turning around to run away. However, black holes have covered the sky, enveloping them all. Countless amounts of energy poured out of the black hole and swept down below. For Roger and Carp, Arthur can only pray silently for them in his heart. Chapter 92 on the calm sea. A warship full of holes moved forward. Ugh! A sigh came from the deck, and the surrounding navy looked a little sluggish when they heard the voice. Carp sat on a stool, his hair disheveled, his clothes in tatters, like a beggar. I can't help but recall the scene that happened before. Energetic attacks poured down from the sky, each one containing great power. Under the attack of this intensity, they could not hold out for long, let alone those ordinary navies. For this reason, Carp made the decision at the first time to let all the navies retreat immediately, and he came to break the rear. The armed color was attached to his body, and he stubbornly resisted more than a dozen energy attacks, and finally bought some time to let the Navy withdraw to the warship. But it also caused Carp to suffer internal injuries, although it didn't look like anything from the outside. Thankfully, the terrifying woman didn't catch up. Drifting away from the water capital, Carp breathed a sigh of relief. Why is everyone in the Arthur Pirates so terrifying? Carp frowned tightly and slowly laid down in his chair. Why are these powerful people willing to be pirates? Isn't the welfare of their navy good enough? Carp is destined to have no answer to such a question. The warship is moving forward at a very fast speed, and the matter must be reported to the Navy headquarters as soon as possible. Carp knew that the sea would be stormy again because of the addition of the Arthur Pirates. And on the other side of the water city, in a hotel room, it's really ruthless hiss, tap tap, I don't have the strength of yours. Because Riley treated his wounds, Spark's face jumped. Don't worry, you can't die. After treating the wound, Riley also slapped it, distorting Spark's painful face. You're going to murder me, Spark yelled, and Riley just smiled. It's really strong, not just strength, but also ability. Roger stood to the side, his right arm bandaged and his face serious. If it's a one-on-one situation, I'm afraid he doesn't have much confidence either. It's still so strong. Arthur Pirates. Roger sighed in his heart. He didn't know how to describe the Arthur Pirates. In short, not being an enemy is the best outcome. I heard that the Arthur Pirates have left the Water City. Has this matter been confirmed? It's been determined. Riley nodded, having seen the Hubelians in which Arthur and his party were riding. That's good. Roger nodded. It will take some time for Master Tom to finish the ship, and we can recuperate in the meantime. During this time, I'm afraid that neither Roger nor Carp will be in a good mood, facing the deep pressure of the pirates who are far stronger than them. Their companions must also become stronger. At the moment, just 3 people are completely inadequate, and the object of their fear, Arthur, at this moment, was carefully looking at Kiana, who was sitting opposite. Huberian drove slowly on the sea, but the atmosphere in the living room was somewhat solemn. Kiana has shed her log of her armor and changed into a black t-shirt and beige skirt, which looks even more cute. If her golden eyes had turned blue, perhaps Arthur would have taken pity on her. Kiana leaned on the couch with her legs crossed and her hands on her chest, and Benares stood by like a loyal guard. Without saying a word, Arthur didn't even know what to say. Looking at Rita and May next to her, she looked at her for help, but the answer she got was, "Captain, Rita has gone to prepare lunch. Is May going to help? May gave Arthur a helpless look and followed Rita into the kitchen. Suddenly, the living room fell into an extremely embarrassing situation. Being stared at by those golden eyes, Arthur felt that he had a weak heart, and he didn't seem to have done anything bad. Wouldn't you become the lawgiver of emptiness? Isn't it the awakening of the second personality? My manly husband, what is there to be afraid of? While thinking, Arthur also crossed Erlang's legs. Kiana, don't be cold, as if someone owes you money. Although it is a lawyer's personality, you still have to smile more. To explain a little here, when you become the lawgiver of emptiness, you will have the consciousness of the lawyer, and the rest of the time it will be the consciousness of Kiana's own body, which is the so-called one body with two thoughts. Do you think I'll forgive you for doing such an excessive thing to me while I'm asleep? A glint flashed in Kiana's golden eyes. Oh, you know that. Arthur's eyes lit up as he looked Kiana up and down. The style is completely different, quite like a royal sister, but it gives people a different feeling. You. As Arthur watched, Kiana felt as if a pair of hands were really caressing her. Suddenly, a flash of annoyance flashed in his eyes, and with a wave of his right hand, the spear of a Kong appeared, shooting out towards Arthur. Arthur smiled at Kiana's attack. A small black hole appeared next to it, and the spear of Yakong entered it, but it was nowhere to be seen. Don't waste your efforts, Kiana. Your attacks won't do anything to me. When Kiana was successfully promoted to the Law of the Void, Arthur also gained the ability to correspond to it, take control of your space. Within a radius, he was the absolute master of this space, and even Kiana's ability was weaker than that. Bella, kill him with me. I know that I can't call a helper. Looking at Kiana, who was huffing, Benares stood still and didn't know what to do. Don't embarrass Bella anymore. Syllable. A crisp snap of her fingers sounded, and Bella and Kiana froze in place. Space freezes. You just said that you did something excessive while you were sleeping, so I guess that feeling must be very clear. Arthur came up to Kiana, rubbing his fingers against her chin. Looking at those angry eyes, Arthur laughed. So to give you a deeper impression, for disobedient children, it is still necessary to train them well. Arthur lifted his hands and picked Kiana up. What are you going to do? Let me go. However, such words are not lethal at all. You'll know what to do in a moment, but don't fall asleep so quickly or it won't be fun. Leaned into Kiana's ear and whispered, then looked up and shouted, Rita, we're not going to eat lunch. Good captain, have fun. Rita's voice came from the dining room, and Arthur carried Kiana to the door, glancing at Benares, who was still frozen behind him. With a hook of his fingers, his body slowly levitated and floated towards him. The door closed, and in a few moments Kiana's angry voice could be heard inside. I won't forgive you if you dare to do that. Shower, if you dare to threaten me. You will definitely sing Conquest today. Queen, Bella is sorry. Chapter 93, Headquarters of the Navy. When Sengoku knew that Karp was back, he personally went to greet him. At this time, Sengoku was already a naval admiral, and if he didn't encounter anything special, he would be guarding the naval headquarters. Standing in the harbor, you could see a warship swaying towards this side in the distance. Is the battle against the Roger pirates so fierce? The Navy has always had the upper hand in the battle against pirates for two reasons. The first is because the Navy has a steady stream of regenerative forces that can be crushed by numbers. If one warship can't beat it, you can send 2 and send 10. The second is the warship itself. The craftsmanship of the warship is unmatched by the pirate sailboats, and a reinforced version of the warship can be equipped with 6 cannons. And these cannons are also more powerful than ordinary cannons. Its stiff hull and powerful firepower allow the Navy to be invincible on the seas. Around the former Locks pirates made waves on the sea, they did not dare to confront the large number of warships of the Navy head-on. These 2 points established the position of the Navy. It stands to reason that to be able to turn a warship into this appearance must have experienced a lot of firepower. But can the Roger pirates have such firepower? The bewildered Sengoku finally waited for the warship to stop in front of him. Later, he saw the wounded Navy coming down from the warship and hurriedly organized the surrounding Navy to send them to the infirmary. Karp was the last to get off the warship, and his embarrassed appearance made Sengoku a little embarrassed. "Ha ha, what's wrong, Carp? It's like this." Sengoku laughed and walked up to Carp, reached out, and patted him on the back vigorously. Ahem ahem poof. What Sengoku didn't expect was that Carp coughed twice, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. This made Sengoku's face change. "Carp, you're hurt. I'll take you to the medical room." Saying that, Sengoku was going to help Carp to the medical room. But Carp shook his head. "I have something very important to go to the marshal. No matter how important things are, heal your injuries first." Sengoku is in a hurry. How can he let Carp leave now? At least he has to check it. There is no major problem. "Very important thing, Sengoku." Carp slapped his right hand on Sengoku's shoulder and squeezed it hard. "Okay, I'll help you over." Seeing Carp's determined eyes, Sengoku nodded and helped Carp to walk towards the naval headquarters. In the admiral's office, hearing Carp's description, Steelbone nodded solemnly. "It's really the Arthur pirates. It's a bit of a problem now," Cyborg said with a sigh. "Actually, Marshal Kong, have you ever heard about this before?" Carp asked, confused. "Yes, just 2 days ago." Immediately, the Steel Bones said about the pheasant. "It's just that Major General Kazan is still in a coma now, and he hasn't received accurate information, so he hasn't said anything about it." Cyborg glanced apologetically at Carp. If he had been notified earlier, Carp might have been a little more prepared and would not have been so seriously injured. "It's okay, Marshal. The situation was so sudden that even if you knew it in advance, it wouldn't be of much use." Carp shook his head, remembering the scene at that time, which made him not only pinch a cold sweat. "If you say anything about Major General Kazan, you're awake by now." A voice came through the door, and the yellow ape walked in. "I've seen Marshal Kong, General Sengoku, Lieutenant General Carp." The yellow ape nodded at everyone. "Major General Poliusolino, do you mean Major General Kazan has woken up?" After hearing this, the sorrow on his face finally dissipated somewhat. Pheasant's talent and abilities are among the best in their navy, and Cyborg has given them considerable expectations. Let's go and have a look, just in time for Lieutenant General Carp to do a physical examination." The group immediately walked towards the medical room. Sengoku forcibly takes Carp for a physical examination, and Cyborg arrives at Pheasant's bedside. "Marshal of the Sky. Okay, don't be so polite. How are you feeling now?" Steel Gukong said and glanced up and down at the Pheasant, nodded slightly, and already had a rough idea in his heart. The Marshal can rest assured that his health is no longer in serious trouble. The Pheasant was originally a person with the ability to freeze the fruit, and it was able to freeze him just because the ice was relatively hard and surrounded by domineering inside. That level of domineering is something that the Pheasant can't forcibly break, so he can only wait. When the domineering dissipates to a certain extent, he can forcibly break free. "It's okay." Cyborg nodded. At this moment, Zifa also rushed in from the outside. "Teacher, I'm sorry to worry you." Seeing Zifa, the Pheasant said with some self-reproach, "It's good that you're okay. What kind of opponent did you meet this time?" Speaking of this, the Pheasant's face gradually became serious. "Marshal, teacher, I met the Arthur pirates." Although they had already guessed the answer in their hearts, when they heard it again from the Pheasant's mouth, everyone's faces couldn't help but be a little solemn. Later, after the diagnosis was confirmed, everyone walked out of the medical room, and Sengoku and Carp were still arguing at the end. They all said that I was fine, and I had to go for a physical examination. As if nothing was wrong, I should follow the doctor's instructions and recuperate for 2 days with peace of mind. For Carp's bull temper, Sengoku is also helpless. "Isn't just a little internal bleeding? I'll be fine in 2 days." Carp resolutely resists such a thing as lying in a hospital bed. Some of them returned to the office of Cyborg. "Marshal, now that the Arthur pirates have reappeared, shouldn't our navy be prepared?" As a naval admiral, Sengoku now prioritizes the interests of the navy, according to his idea, just like encircling and suppressing the Rocks pirates. Hundreds of warships completely wiped out the Arthur pirates. It's necessary to be prepared, but you can't do it on a large scale. Sengoku's idea was understood as soon as he heard it, and this was a veto in disguise. "But if you don't take advantage of the fact that you destroy it now, I'm afraid that the power of the Arthur pirates will grow stronger and stronger in the future. Sengoku was still a little unwilling. Of course, I know this kind of thing, but now that the sea is in turmoil, the rest of the Rocks pirates are the only ones who have been caught a few times and escaped in the end. Their power is getting bigger and bigger, and they're about to occupy almost the whole of the New World. And if there's a war for them, it will be a great war. Steel Ballow shook his head as he said this. The main thing is that we don't have the support of the world government. This is the most important point. Because Locks had the ambition to dominate the world. The world government gave the Navy the greatest support. But the others only make trouble on their own acres and thirds of land. And no matter how jubilant they are, they have no effect on the rule of the world government. So the world government simply ignored this. If there's a real war, everything will be borne by their Navy itself. This kind of truth, as long as you mention it a little, everyone will understand. It's Marshal Kong. It's me who is reckless. Sengoku nodded, retreated, and said no more. As for the Arthur pirates, we are still maintaining a wait-and-see attitude. As long as they don't do too much, we won't take the lead in initiating incidents. This phrase also represents the attitude of the Navy towards the Arthur pirates. Chapter 94. In the early morning, the warm sun shines down from the sky. Hyperion sailed on the calm sea. In one of the bedrooms, Arthur opened his eyes and glanced down at Kiana, who was holding his arm. Kiana, who is asleep, is like a kitten, always trying to grab something. As if in some sweet dream, from time to time some cute sounds come out of my mouth. Such a cute appearance made Arthur can't help but touch it with his hand. Captain, don't make a fuss. A little abnormal movement made Kiana a little sober, grabbed the hand that was a stranger and put it in her arms, arched her little head to find a comfortable position, and continued to sleep. It seems that the lawyer's consciousness has fallen into a deep sleep. Hearing Kiana's familiar voice, Arthur breathed a sigh of relief. In the past 3 days, Kiana the lawgiver has shown enough stubbornness. All it takes is a little strength to regain a little strength and launch an attack on Arthur. But no matter what kind of attack it is useless for Arthur now. The trick of spatial solidification alone is not something that Kiana can resist. However, after using it twice, Kiana, who is already the lawgiver of emptiness, also discovered the weakness of spatial solidification. When there is some change in the surrounding space, he immediately hides in the imaginary space. The imaginary space does not exist in reality, but refers to another space. Spatial solidification can only solidify the current space, and naturally cannot have any effect on another space. But that was just a matter for Arthur. Kiana can enter the imaginary space, and Arthur can naturally do it too. Just a little more time to waste. But because of this, after catching Kiana, the price she paid was much more miserable. The space is frozen and is posed in a variety of poses. After 3 days of continuous trouble, I couldn't run away from fighting, but I suffered even deeper humiliation. The lawyer's consciousness finally fell into a deep sleep. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a peaceful morning. Both hands were grasped, which made Arthur feel uncomfortable, and he wanted to pull out his left hand, but he didn't expect Kiana to grasp it quite tightly. "Captain, can you stop moving?" A low, disgruntled murmur came out of Kiana's mouth, letting go of her hands, and instead wrapping her arms around Arthur's neck even further. Well, it looks like the brain has woken up, and it just doesn't want to open its eyes. It's already up and running. Looking at the face that was close at hand, Arthur could only use a trick. Reached out and pinched Kiana's nose. Kiana, who was short of breath, was blocked by Arthur when she was about to open her mouth. "You're so annoying, Captain. You can't sleep until you wake up naturally." Breaking free from Arthur's shackles, Kiana finally opened her eyes with a warm and angry face. Looking at these big blue eyes, Arthur smiled and stood up first. "Get up quickly. I'm afraid Mei will come to call us in a while. Say Chow Chow. Chow Chow will arrive." The door opened, and Mei was the first to poke out a small head and was relieved to find that Kiana's pupils were blue. "It's so golden that I can't be idle all day." "Captain, Kiana, Rita has prepared breakfast." "Well, we'll go down right away." After washing up, he walked down the stairs with Kiana. Wow, it smells so good. Seeing the food, Kiana instantly rushed out. It's really quiet today, and I'm not used to it, Rita said and winked at Arthur, smiling all over her face. Alas, Rita, don't talk about it. It's been enough for me to toss in the past 2 days. Arthur sighed as he spoke, picked up a crystal bag, and took a bite. The rich fragrance spreads in the mouth and stimulates the buds. It's really a delicacy in the world. But to Rita, the captain seemed to be enjoying himself. Rita said, and looked at Kiana with a funny look. Kiana was a little embarrassed to look at her. All right, don't say any more. Hurry up and eat. A quick breakfast passed in teasing. Ah, it's so full, it's so full. After eating, Kiana sat on the sofa, touching her stomach without scruples, with a satisfied look. Captain, do you need some fruit? May walked over with a fruit platter. Put on the table first and eat it later. Come, let me take a good look at you. Arthur said as he held out his hand. I've been messing with Kiana for the past 2 days, and I don't care a little about May, and Rita, so I have to make up for it. Placing the fruit platter on the table, May took Arthur's hand and sat down next to her. Well, it's still so pretty. Holding May's cheek for a moment, Arthur nodded thoughtfully. Hearing Arthur's words, May was still very excited in her heart and glanced at Kiana next to her a little shyly. All right, I'm not going to make a shiny light bulb. Kiana turned her head to the side. After a while with May, and Rita, most of the morning time passed. Open the system interface, read the information of each character once, and click on the lottery. 10 shots in a row. Sure enough, it still didn't hit the soul. It's still some character shards and Titan mechs. Over the years, Arthur has accumulated hundreds of Titan mechs, all of which can form a small army. With the firepower of the Titan mecha, as long as you don't encounter someone with a particularly powerful ability, you can destroy a country. I'm really looking forward to the next Valkyrie. Who will it be? Faces flashed through his mind, and no matter who it was, Arthur felt that he would not have any regrets, because each of them is so beautiful and powerful. Time passed slowly, dusk fell, and Arthur and his party prepared the tools for the barbecue on the deck. Just then, a sailboat in the distance passed them. On the deck of the sailboat, there was only one figure standing. However, when Arthur saw it, his eyes lit up. Chapter 95, The Sunset, was reflected in the twilight sea, and Hyperion moved forward slowly. On the deck, Rita and the others were preparing the barbecue tools, while Arthur was looking at the various ingredients in the store. Since it's a barbecue, it's important to choose the best meats. Only now did I realize that I couldn't even afford to eat. Arthur sighed. He could only choose some of the ordinary types, and the spirit meat next to him, the cheapest one, was not something that Arthur could afford now. Feeling his poverty, he bought some mutton, beef, pork, and vegetables. At this moment, a sailboat passed by. If it was an ordinary sailboat, Arthur didn't care. However, above the sailboat, only a figure stood, dressed in black, with a large sword behind his back. The most striking thing is his eagle-like eyes. I am afraid that only one person above the sea has such eyes. Jorakol Mihawk, the great sword of the future. Although he still looks like a teenager at this time, the sharp aura exuded by his body is still impossible to ignore. Is this the fate of God? A smile tugged at the corners of Arthur's lips as he turned to Rita and the others. You prepare first, and I'll come when I go. After saying that, Arthur directly cast a spatial freeze to freeze the entire area. Then he stepped on the void and landed in front of Mihawk, and at the same time unraveled the spatial solidification. To others, it was as if Arthur had suddenly appeared in front of them. Mihawk stood on the deck, staring ahead, unconcerned about anything beside him. Suddenly, however, a figure appeared in front of him without warning. If it were anyone else, they would have been taken aback, but Mihawk was different. A sharp light flashed in his eagle-like eyes, and he instantly drew the great sword behind his back and slashed straight towards Arthur. Boom! The whole sailboat sank a little, and the power spread outward. The commotion caught the attention of Rita and the others in Hyperion. It's really strange that the captain of the ship, how can he take the initiative to make trouble for others? Kiana tilted her head a little incomprehensible. Isn't it usually a nuisance to be troublesome? The captain should have his own ideas. May nodded affirmatively. No matter what Arthur did, she would support her unconditionally. Maybe the captain is tired of looking at us and wants a change of taste, Rita said, with a demonic smile on her lips. No, it won't. Kiana's eyes widened in disbelief. Kiana, you don't really believe it, do you? May next to her looked at Kiana speechlessly. They still have a lot of say in whether Arthur's sexual orientation is normal. After all, it's so enthusiastic every time. Just kidding, Kiana, don't take it seriously. Seeing Kiana's serious look, Rita also had to clarify. Phew, I was scared to death. I thought I was going to wear men's clothes in the future. Kiana patted her chest, looking like she was palpitating. The discussion was in full swing on the Hyperion, while the sailing ship on the other side fell into an eerie silence. Mihawk's eyes widened, and he looked ahead in disbelief. Arthur, crouched on a bow of the boat, caught the long knife he swung out with his fingers. How is that possible? Mihawk muttered to himself, unable to believe what he was seeing. Mihawk has been honing his swordsmanship since childhood, and he can maintain extreme composure against any opponent along the way. Now, however, it wasn't just the eagle's eye that didn't see how the person in front of him came to him. Even his own attack was blocked so lightly. Seeing Mihawk with a look of surprise on his face, Arthur let go of his fingers. With his current strength and defense, Mihawk's full-force blow naturally couldn't have any effect on him. Who are you? Retracting the long knife, Mihawk looked at Arthur with a solemn gaze. The people who challenge you, Arthur said. The cold air on his body surged, and a long knife condensed. Devil fruit ability. Mihawk held his hand on the hilt of the knife, and the battle intent gradually rose in his eyes. Although the man in front of him was the most powerful he had encountered since he went to sea, since he was an opponent, he was fearless. Seeing that Mihawk was almost ready, Arthur jumped off the bow of the ship and stood on the opposite side. Look, the captain is going to fight. Seeing that there was a good show on the side, Kiana immediately stood up and ran to the side of the boat. It seems that the captain is quite interested in this man. Rita rubbed her chin thoughtfully, not knowing what was going on in her little head. May stood aside, her eyes fixed on Arthur, and did not speak. On the deck of the sailing ship, in the face of such a strong opponent, Mihawk did not dare to be careless and took the lead in attacking. Instantly drew the long knife, and the sword flashed, slashing straight down. Without any fancy moves, sheer power and speed and keen insight are the capital of his Mihawk. Boom! The impact of the force caused the sailboat to sink instantly, and the calm sea suddenly surged outward. The strength is good. The long knife condensed with ice blocked Mihawk's blow. It's not over yet. The first blow was blocked, which was already expected by Mihawk. Raise the long knife and slash again, faster and more powerful than the previous one. Bang, bang, bang. A storm of attacks rained down on Arthur. What's going on with the captain? Why just resist? Seeing that Arthur was just passively defensive, Kiana on the side was anxious and wanted to rush up immediately to beat Mihawk. Don't worry, let's just watch. May comforted Kiana. On the sailboat, Mihawk's attacks became more and more rapid, and his strength and speed exceeded his limits again and again. Such a discovery made Arthur happy to play with him for a while. Finally, all the attacks dissipated, and Mihawk fell to his knees with a broadsword, panting. He didn't have the strength to swing another knife now. The difference in strength is really felt. It's so powerful that there's no end to the chase. Don't you have the strength anymore? Arthur beckoned, and Hyperion flew over on the barbecue and instantly took out a glass of wine and poured it. This taste is, even though he was exhausted and smelled the familiar aroma of wine, Mihawk struggled to look over. Oh, you know this wine? Arthur raised his eyebrows and looked at Mihawk with some surprise. I had the pleasure of having a drink, and the taste is still unforgettable. Mihawk sat cross-legged on the deck, picked up the glass in front of him, and took a deep breath. That's what it tastes like. Seeing Mihawk's intoxicated expression, Arthur also smiled. It seems that Doflamingo and they're doing well. If you like it, I'll give it to you, Arthur said, placing the full jar in front of Mihawk. Give me all this, Alter? Mihawk looked at Arthur in shock. Mihawk was well aware of the value of this wine, and although it was only a jar the size of a head, it was more precious than the equivalent of gold. That's right. Arthur nodded, looking at the jar of wine placed in front of him. Myhawk knew that it was a little bad to accept such a valuable gift, but it's still hard to resist the temptation that emanates. Okay, I'll buy yours. Myhawk finally relented and nodded. Then the two chatted a little, and they became familiar with each other a lot. This is for you. I hope we will have a chance to meet again in the future, Arthur said as he pulled out a communicator and placed it in front of Myhawk. Next time you come to me, this kind of wine pipe is enough. Arthur got up and returned to Hyperion. My name is Joracole Myhawk. Myhawk stood up and shouted at Arthur. Arthur. Arthur waved his hand, and a faint voice came out. The distance between the two ships gradually separated, but it is conceivable that before long, they will meet again. Chapter 96. As night fell, Huberian drove slowly on the sea. Not even a single Sea King was seen. There's no bothering from the Sea Kings. It's all the credit of AI Chan. Hyperion will continuously release a sonar that will drive away schools of fish in the vicinity. And in Arthur's bedroom, Arthur, who had already finished washing, had just opened a bathroom door and walked out, when suddenly a sharp attack seemed like he was coming at him. A smile tugged at the corners of Arthur's lips as he took a step forward, dodging the attack while holding the man in his arms. At the same time, the dark room suddenly brightened. Rita, what are you doing again? Looking at the closed face, Arthur asked with some puzzlement. I found that the captain has changed his taste recently, and as a maid, I naturally need to cater to it. Rita's body slowly stepped back and spun around. How's that captain? Is it good looking? Dressed as a swordsman, with a long knife and budclothes on his waist, the whole person looks quite heroic. What's the matter, captain? Isn't it pretty? Seeing that Arthur didn't make an evaluation for a long time, Rita's expression was a little sluggish. Sure enough, the captain still prefers real swordsmen. No, Rita, it's just that I'm a little fascinated by it. Arthur shook his head. The smile on his lips became a little thicker, and he ripped off his bathrobe. Do you want a fencing with me? Rita, you'll regret it. At this moment, 3 pairs of eyes widened through the crack in the door. Bella, didn't you go to sleep? Why did you come here to join in the fun? Looking at Bella next to her, Kiana blinked her big eyes. Her Majesty, Bella is here to protect you. Oh, Kiana nodded, then glanced at May above with some dissatisfaction. May, they are fighting so fiercely. Let you go, you won't go, and Rita will rob it. Speaking of which, Kiana was a burst of regret, as if it was herself who was robbed. Was shamed to role play or something. May said with some embarrassment. It's not a role play for you. May is a real swordsman, and it's not too late to get in. No, it's not good to bother either of them. May shook her head in refusal. But how could Kiana be so obedient? With a sinister smile, he pushed May into the house. The body can't keep its balance, and it naturally wants to grab something. As a result, May grabbed Kiana, and Kiana grabbed Bella next to her. Bang, 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 slammed open the door, and the 3 figures fell straight to the carpet. Captain, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong room. Kiana was pressed by May and looked up with an embarrassed expression. The ship. Captain, let's go first. Looking at the 2 people in front of him who had already put their long swords into the sheath, May quickly stood up and turned around to leave. Since you're already here, don't go. With a wave of Arthur's right hand, the door closed. Don't blame the queen. It's all Bella's fault. At this time, Bella stepped forward and stood in front of Kiana. Don't worry. None of you can escape. For a while, there were many swords and shadows in the room, and Arthur fought 4 people alone in a posture of dominating the world. During this period, Kiana's lawyer personality also ran out to join in the fun, looking at the 2 pupils of 1 blue and 1 gold. Arthur's attack was even more violent, killing them and throwing them off their armor and begging for mercy. It was destined to be a sleepless night. Arthur's side is on the rise, and in the far distance, in an unknown sea, Doflamingo is also in full swing. More than a dozen sailing ships laid siege to Doflamingo, and the night was brightened by the fighting. Dover, the other side, is coming prepared, and it is about to form an encirclement. What should we do? Tory Bull snorted. His gaze swept around, and his face was a little solemn. If they are on land, they are completely unafraid of facing an enemy several times their size. But now it's above the sea. If a sailboat is hit by artillery fire and plunges into the sea, it will be in a very disadvantageous situation. It must be that old fellow of Pathius who dares to slap me. Doflamingo's face was furious. When he attended Pasius's banquet, he followed the ship through several countries, which also made the wine in his hand famous. However, the price of a small bottle of 10 million Bailey is not affordable for anyone. Only the true aristocrats were able to spend a lot of money. Along the way, Doflamingo has earned hundreds of millions of Baileys. However, such a huge business opportunity naturally aroused the covetousness of many people, and Pico Pathius is one of them. Although he has a big family and a big business, he can't afford to spend tens of millions of Baileys a day to buy alcohol and drink. So I thought of a solution once and for all. That is to want to work with Doflamingo to know where this wine comes from. Faced with such a request, Doflamingo naturally would not agree. Pico Pathius's network is many times stronger than his. If Arthur were given a choice between the two, I believe that Pico Pathius will definitely be chosen. Of course, this is just Doflamingo's idea. In any case, Doflamingo would never let anyone interfere with his cooperation with Arthur. This is just a few bottles, and it has earned hundreds of millions of Baileys. And once the market is completely opened, the money is rolling in. I guess I can't count the money I work every day. How could Doflamingo give such an opportunity to someone else? The result is the current situation. I saw more than a dozen sailing ships gradually encircling around me, and there were many forces mixed in with them. Doflamingo memorized them one by one, and when the matter was over, he would settle accounts with them. Secure the ship, I'll go and kill them. Empty road. After Doflamingo finished speaking, he tied the clouds in the sky with a thread so thin that it was invisible to the naked eye, and his body soared into the air, reaching the opposite side in a few jumps. Hee hee. The price to deal with me is something you can't afford. Brush, brush, brush. Thin lines surround it, and the people around it are separated in an instant. With Doflamingo's strength, falling into the crowd is simply a random killing. Even if there are a few devil fruit abilities among them, they are no match for Doflamingo. From this night on, Doflamingo was no longer a petty arms dealer, but a yiksha that everyone feared. And those who deal with him will pay their due. Whether he is a prince or a nobleman or a hegemon, Cecilia's words felt a little heavier than Erlendale. If the reader doesn't mind, I'm fine. Chapter 97. In the early morning, a faint ray of sunlight streams through the windows. The room was filled with the smell of gun smoke. The very regular biological clock made Rita slowly open her eyes. Her gaze swept hazily and then gradually regained consciousness. Sit up from the couch and rub your temples with your fingers to see everything in the room. Ah! Rita shook her head helplessly and stood up, moved her whole body a little, looked at her embarrassed appearance, and walked towards the bathroom. Soon the sound of running water could be heard in the bathroom. Such a sound woke up Mei, who was holding Kiana. Looking at Kiana, who was close at hand, Mei was slightly stunned, and the memory in her mind gradually recovered, not only making her cheeks a little rosy. Why is it slimy? Mei's brows furrowed, and her eyes looked in the direction of the bathroom for the first time. Rita's movements are still so fast. I'll go to my room. He took Kiana's arms around his neck away, glanced at Arthur lying on his back, and pursed his lips. It's still so energetic. All the words that spit out involuntarily were quickly blocked with his hands, and Mei took a blanket and covered Arthur, and then opened the door and walked out. There was no one else on the entire Hyperion, so Mei was also a little unscrupulous. Half an hour later, Rita came out of the bathroom, and the position where everyone outside was lying had changed. Arthur ran to the bed and fell asleep with Kiana in his arms, while Bella had woken up and stood beside him looking a little overwhelmed. Bella opened the window to change the air in the room. Oh, okay. Hearing Rita's words, Bella immediately did so and opened the window. Suddenly, fresh air greeted you. Leave the window open, Bella, and you go wash up too. It can be a joke to go out like this. Rita pointed to Bella's cheek and walked out with a smile. Breakfast still has to be prepared. I'm sure everyone is hungry by now. After Rita left, Bella touched her cheek for some reason. A frozen mark streamed down her forehead to the corner of her mouth. Instantly, the scene of Arthur holding a gun to her head and critting it came to mind. It's so damnable. Bella bit her lip, glanced at Arthur, who was holding her queen, and rushed into the bathroom as fast as she could. The shower turned on, feeling the feeling of slowly melting, and Bella breathed a sigh of relief. When May finished washing, put on her clothes, and walked out of the room, Bella was already sitting there in the living room. "Captain, haven't they gotten up yet?" Looking at Rita coming out of the kitchen with her meal, May asked. "It's been an hour, and it's time to wake up." The captain and Kiana, the two lazy worms, get together, and they won't wake up if no one screams. Rita couldn't be clearer about everyone's personality. That's right. May upstairs smiled, turned, and went back to Arthur's room. This time there is no other special smell in the room, but the mess on the floor still needs to be cleaned up. "Captain, get up." May reached out her index finger and poked Arthur in the cheek. "Are you taking revenge?" Arthur's eyes didn't open, and he opened his mouth and said softly, "If I wanted to wake up, I would have woken up a long time ago, but I just didn't want to get up." Yes. The captain poked May-E, and May-E poked it back again, and it was smoothed out. May-E's words made Arthur open his eyes, and when he got up, he also dragged Kiana, who was holding him. "Oh, Captain, why do you keep disturbing people's dreams?" Kiana moved, hugging Arthur's neck to push him back again. "But now that I'm awake, I don't go back to sleep. Let's wash up first, and then we'll go down in a moment." Getting up from the bed, he picked up Kiana around his neck and walked to the bathroom. Half an hour later, when Arthur and Kiana walked out of the living room, everyone else was seated. "Your Majesty, please be seated." Seeing Kiana coming, Bella immediately pulled out the stool, and even Arthur on the side didn't care. "All right, Bella, you don't have to go through the trouble. Sit down." "Yes, Queen." Bella nodded and took her seat, and everyone tacitly didn't say anything about last night. After all, it's all so embarrassing. Breakfast was served in a pleasant atmosphere. While Rita was cleaning up the dishes, May-E, Kiana, and Bella went to clean up the traces left by the war, Arthur sat on the couch and opened the system interface. Calculate the time, and the friendship points are enough. Open the lottery interface, and sure enough, it's just right. By now, Arthur has been unfazed by the lottery, but surprises often appear at such times. 10 rays of light emerged in front of Arthur one by one. Character card, Bronya Zajek. Character fragments, 45 on this Hyperion. The 4th Valkyrie finally arrived. Bronya Zajek. Opening the Valkyrie warehouse. A new Valkyrie is unlocked after Rita, May-E, and Kiana. Open Bronya's personal interface. 45/30ths, upgradable. Click on promotion, and immediately went from a B-rank Valkyrie to an A-rank Valkyrie. Meanwhile, Arthur checks the armor that Bronya has unlocked. Valkyrie Chariot, Driver Outfit, Mountain Blow, Snow Sniper, Silver Wolf's Dawn. A total of 4 armor pairs can be used. Now that Arthur has enough combat power, the need for combat power is no longer urgent, and these 4 armor pairs can give Bronya the power to protect herself. After checking your attributes, click the play button. Countless rays of light condensed in front of Arthur, slowly outlining a figure. The light condensed, and a figure emerged from within. Dressed in a slightly military-style outfit, his face is calm, and there is not much emotion to show out. The light gray curls are combed into double ponytail spiral curls with paired bows that match the outfit. The closed eyes slowly open, revealing light gray pupils. The Valkyrie Bronya Zajek is willing to work for the captain and give everything for the captain. Seeing Arthur in front of her, Bronya knelt on one leg to show her loyalty. Chapter 98. Inside the bridge of the Hyperion, inside and outside the screen at this time, 2 pairs of eyes stare at each other. "Rita, how long have they been like this?" Arthur looked at Bronya, standing in front of the screen and Aye on the screen, rubbing his chin with his fingers. "Captain, it's been about half an hour." Rita next to her replied, "Come on." Kiana on the side was full of energy, and she was a little eager to try. "Kiana, who are you cheering for?" May asked suspiciously. "Naturally, it's going to be a cheer for both of them," Kiana said as a matter of course. And such an answer made May pat her forehead, speechless. It is estimated that a new round of challenges will start again. As soon as Rita finished speaking, the two people who were glaring at each other immediately began to move. You were 100 years ahead of me when you wanted to hack into my system. Maybe to make it more vivid, i.e. also blurs the appearance of sitting in front of the computer on the screen. His eyes were fixed on the screen, and his hands were tapping on the keyboard as quickly as flying, and he could only see countless afterimages. And Bronya on the outside is not far behind. Countless codes flash quickly on the big screen in front of you, making it dizzying. For the control of the Hyperion system, Bronya will definitely take it back. Bronya had a serious face, as if she was doing something very important. Yes, that's a very important thing for Bronya. As a hacker, it's unforgivable to have control of your local system if you don't control it. So in the first place, Bronya wanted to take over control of the system in Huberian. But this did alarm Hyperion's artificial intelligence. Huberian IE. A big war began. The two have been battling it out for 2 rounds, but neither has been decided. Now it's the 3rd round. I believe that after the previous familiarity, they have been fully prepared and planned to take down the other party in one fell swoop. Hyperion's defenses are impregnable, and no matter how fierce your attacks are, they will not be able to shake them. Although IE's tone is quite confident, the tight little face and the fast waving hands on the screen show the opposite. Bronya didn't answer IE's words, but attacked more quickly. The tense atmosphere gradually infected everyone, and in the silent control room, only the sound of keyboard clicking. Kiana's eyes were glued to the screen, and Arthur's intentness made Arthur very curious. Kiana, do you understand? I don't understand. Kiana shook her head happily. Well, what are you doing so intently? Arthur looked at Kiana with some confusion. It's a lot of fun. Well, this answer has made Arthur unable to complain. For Bronya and IE's back and forth attacks, if I see a confusion. I only saw countless codes flashing quickly on the screen, and the two of them moved faster and faster, and their expressions became more and more serious. It seems to have reached a rather critical point. Suddenly, Bronya's movements froze, and her raised right hand stretched out her index finger. At this moment, let's fight it out. Syllable. I slammed it on the keyboard. Suddenly, there was a slight tremor throughout Hyperion, and the lights flickered and flickered. This continued for a few seconds before returning to normal. In front of the screen, Bronya slowly squatted on the ground, as if exhausted. Ha! I told you a long time ago that if you want to hack into the Hyperion system, as long as you have my love sauce, it is absolutely impossible. On the screen, AI-chan laughed at the sky with smoke all over her body. While it's unclear what happened, it seems that Bronya's offense ended in failure once again. After the shock of Huberian just now, Arthur didn't dare to let them continue to fight. If you make a mess of Hyperion, it's over. Ahem, let's stop here. Arthur walked over to the squatting next to Bronya and patted her little head gently. Get up, don't catch a cold, Arthur said as he bent down and held out his hand. I'm sorry, Captain. It's Bronya who is useless. Bronya lowered her head, looking a little sluggish. How could it be? Bronya, you're so powerful. On the home court of AI-chan, she can play on par with her. Arthur was comforted by appropriateness. Does the captain really think Bronya is very powerful? Bronya looked up as she spoke, her light gray eyes tinged with a hint of anticipation. Of course, Bronya is the best. Oomph. As soon as Arthur finished saying this, a dissatisfied snort came from behind him. Well, Kiana is also very powerful. That's pretty much it. Kiana smiled with satisfaction. Hearing Arthur's affirmation, Bronya stood up with the hand stretched out in front of her and saw that IE in front of her was not to be outdone. Bronya won't give up. No matter how many times you attack, it's in vain. IE leans up on his neck, although his heart is very weak, but he must not lose in momentum. Seeing that the two of them were going toe-to-toe and were about to fight, Arthur hurriedly said, Bronya, don't be so obsessed with whose hands are in the hands of Huberion. We are all one, in everyone's hands. In fact, the real control is still in Arthur's hands, but he is too lazy to care, and IE is doing a good job. But in case the captain is in danger, Bronya said and glanced at IE, the meaning of which was self-evident. That is to say, With the existence of this love close, she can't mobilize Huberian at the first time. In that case, let the two of you run the Hubelians together. This is the only way to solve it at the moment. IE is a Huberian artificial intelligence, and it would be a little bad if Bronya took over and left her aside. Bronya listened to the captain. Bronya nodded, and IE shrugged on screen. Since you've said so, Captain, AI-chan doesn't matter. A dispute has finally come to an end. In front of the Huberian drive, the outline of a small island gradually emerged. Captain, there's a small island ahead. Should we go up and take a look? Rita walked over and asked. Let's go and have a look. Arthur also misses the long-lost land. Okay, Captain. Chapter 99. Captain, there's something wrong with this island. As Hyperion approached the island, the number of ships around it gradually increased. According to the signs on the ships, it is possible to know their identity. There are pirate ships, there are also some merchant ships, and others have the signs of national symbols. It's a bit surprising that these three ships are mixed together and there is no conflict. It's just that everyone's body is full of anger, and the island in front of them is the gathering place of these anger. Even the nervous Kiana could see it, and one could imagine how far this anger had reached. Everybody be careful. Although Arthur's current lineup is fearless, they still have to maintain the due caution. Got it, Captain. Everyone nodded, and Hyperion drew closer to the edge of the island. The people around them did not react to their arrival, and they seemed to have a strong sense of purpose and walked toward the island without saying a word. The atmosphere here is really oppressive. Mei's gaze swept around. The weather was gloomy, and the island did not have much vegetation, but was made of black stones. In such an environment, people will feel depressed unconsciously. Let's go see what attracts them to the island. Arthur led the way, and everyone followed, their eyes warily watching their surroundings. Everyone gave them the feeling that they were going to fight, and it seemed that the fight had been held for a long time. The feeling around is not people, but walking barrels of explosives, which only need a little spark to completely detonate. And at the same time, in a tavern on the island. The atmosphere here is more dignified, and only the people sitting at the middle table are more leisurely. And everyone around was angry in their eyes, but they just stared, and they didn't make any moves. The meaning of jealousy is self-evident. Hey, Dover, these people seem to be trying to besiege us. Tory Bull glanced disdainfully at everyone around him and looked at Doflamingo, who was sitting across from him. It's just a bunch of scum. Doflamingo's hand shook his glass slightly, his uncaring voice echoing around him. This made the faces of everyone around them change. Their fists clenched. Anger had filled the brains of all of them, and even the smell of wine wafting around them was ignored by them at this moment. One can imagine the extent of anger towards Doflamingo and his party. Dover, as you expected, various forces are about to arrive on this small island one after another. The door to the tavern opened, and Diamanti, ignoring the people on both sides, went straight to Doflamingo. I didn't feel a trace of fear for the army to kill. Come on, just get rid of them all at once. A smile tugged at Doflamingo's lips. Let's go out and see how many people want our lives. Doflamingo stood up as he spoke and walked out of the room with the steps of not recognizing his relatives. After a while, the tavern, which had been overcrowded before, was empty in an instant. As the flow of people entered the island, Arthur's party suddenly stopped. Directly ahead, Doflamingo and the others also stopped, with a surprised look on their faces. Doflamingo, why are you here? Arthur walked up to Doflamingo, his gaze sweeping around. All this is for you? At first, I didn't understand what was going on this island, but the moment I saw Doflamingo, it became clear in an instant. The source of everyone's angry gaze was Doflamingo, who walked in the middle of the road with extremely arrogant steps. Yes, they're just some self-conscious guys. Doflamingo glanced around disdainfully. Make such a big move, come on. Tell me what you've been up to lately. The two of them said as they returned to the tavern they had been in before. Only then did everyone really pay attention to Arthur and his party. These people actually knew this demon, and their angry eyes immediately shifted a little. Inside the tavern, despite the increasingly ugly faces of the people around him, Doflamingo recounted their experiences during this time. After Doflamingo was besieged that night, revenge was launched the next day. The people involved in the siege were all nearby countries, as well as caravans and pirates within the country. It's just about wanting a piece of the pie. Against the enemy, Doflamingo will not be relentless. Start with the closest and sweep through them one by one. But they didn't kill innocents indiscriminately. They just hung the leader's head on the gate. As for the consequences of doing such a thing, it is not Doflamingo's business. In a few days, almost all the surrounding forces were killed. Doflamingo's approach finally caused outrage. The combined power of several countries is not to be underestimated. And when it was learned that Doflamingo had set foot on this small island, people were sent to him one after another. This has led to the current situation. Yes, I like what you do. Don't cause trouble, but don't be afraid of things either. For those who dare to provoke themselves, they must be thundered. Now that I'm here, it doesn't matter how many of these guys come. After all, Doflamingo is doing things for himself. And if he doesn't see it, it's just that, since he sees it, he should help. No, we can easily solve these people. Doflamingo shook his head. He felt it was necessary to show their strength in front of Arthur. The first meeting was killed by May E, and if Arthur labeled them as weak, it would probably be a little detrimental to future cooperation. Oh, are you so confident? Okay, then it's up to you to perform. A smile tugged at the corner of Arthur's mouth, and Doflamingo's heart chilled when he saw it. Did you say something wrong? And half an hour ago, at the headquarters of the Navy. We really can't let our Navy stop a little. Where did this pirate group come from? It actually attacked several chambers of commerce in several countries. Looking at the information in his hand, Steel Gukong rubbed his head with a headache. In the past 2 days, I don't know who attacked and killed some important leaders of the Chamber of Commerce and the princes and nobles of the country, and then fled. The only information available now is that they are on a small island. Marshal of the Air. The door opened, and the red dog strode in, burly, wearing a Navy uniform on his body, which was even more powerful. Major General Sikorsky, now there is a task for you, Cyborg said as he pushed the information in his hand forward. Now a band of pirates of unknown origin are gathering on this island, and I want you to capture them all. This is a group of pirates who have provoked wars in several countries, and their strength must not be underestimated. Rest assured that the Marshal will accomplish his task as a rear admiral. Akainu stood up and saluted a military salute. Well, good. I'll give you a fleet now. Let's go as soon as possible. It's the Marshal. After Akainu finished speaking, he turned to leave. And outside in the harbor, a fleet of 20 warships lined up neatly. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, the warship moved neatly. Head to the island where relations are now becoming more and more strained. On this unknown island, many forces are mixed in, and it has to be said that it is also a kind of fate. Chapter 100 in the palace in the center of the island. There are 2 people who are familiar to Doflamingo and Arthur. Picpathius and Kaido. Picpathius is still the same, dressed in a crisp suit, a businessman's dress. Kaido, on the other hand, was much more bold, with black hair and shawl, naked and topless, with muscles bulging high all over his body, wearing leather pants, and a huge mace standing next to him. Compared to when he left the Rocks Pirates, the momentum exuded by Kaido's body now is not known how many times stronger. And between the 2 of them, a small crystal bottle was opened, and the intoxicating aroma of wine emanated. Because this glass of wine brought together 2 unrelated people. Cheers to our collaboration. Pathius picked up the crystal bottle on the table and poured a glass for each person. It's a shame that there is only 1 glass of such a fine wine. Kaido pinched the wine glass with 2 fingers, and the wine inside was probably only moistened his throat. As a pirate, in addition to wealth, that is, good wine makes people pursue. And Kaido has always been counted by the barrel when he drinks, but now he can only sip it lightly. After today, there'll be more or less such wine. The location of Doflamingo and his party was naturally what he told the kings. It can be said that this encirclement and suppression is his secret push. And Kaido is the partner he found, and he is the backhand to prepare for the prevention of the first one. Everything is still too simple, thinking that by knowing the origin of this wine from Doflamingo, they would be able to get it inexhaustible. But often reality and imagination are always the opposite. Lord Paisius, the situation on the island has changed. A tuxedo-clad attendant walked in, bowed slightly, and continued. Just now, another person has entered the island, and it seems that they are very familiar with those people. And now, the two forces have converged. How many of them are there? Paisius raised his eyebrows, a little puzzled in his heart. Could it be that Doflamingo also called for reinforcements? There are 10 people from both sides combined. Hearing the squire's answer, Paisius not only smiled, but also stopped paying attention to the matter. Are people from other countries already here? The time should be gathered. Yes, Lord Paisius. It has been determined by the ships in the harbor that they have almost arrived. Good. Paisius nodded in satisfaction. Then it's time to watch the play. No matter who wins or loses, they will be the winners in the end. Because there is Kaido, a terrifying person with terrifying strength, in charge. As for Kaido's strength, Paisius couldn't be clearer. At the same time, the last ship arrived on the island. This encirclement was formed by the combination of 4 countries, including the support of the Chamber of Commerce in the country. In addition to this, some pirate ships are also mixed in. At this moment, the person in charge has arrived. The door to the tavern opened, and a group of 4 people walked in. Bold, just pirates don't kneel down when they see our nobles. Seeing that Doflamingo and Arthur's 2 tables were completely ignoring him, one of them couldn't help but shout loudly. Today, the island is full of their people, thousands. That's what makes him so arrogant. Are you finally going to do it? I'm a little impatient to wait. Pika, I'll leave these idiots to you. A faint voice echoed through the tavern, and the others hadn't figured out what was going on. Suddenly, with the exception of Doflamingo and the ground around Arthur, stone spikes stabbed forward from the ground. With the entire tavern as the center, it covers a radius. Caught off guard, those who gathered together were directly skewered into sugar gourds. Most of the entire island is made up of rocks, which allows Pika, who has the ability of stone fruits, to maximize his combat power. Suddenly, the screams rang out one after another, and the nobleman who was still shouting before was directly pierced. The distance of tens of meters in a radius fell into silence in an instant, turning into a terrifying hell. This caused the people in the distance to stop at once and looked at the scene in front of them with horror. It was only one step away, and the person who was still talking and laughing with him just now was already fixed on the stone pillar and groaned in pain, and soon there was no sound. Everyone who witnessed this turned pale, swallowed their saliva, and slowly stepped back. The door to the tavern opened, and a group of people stepped out of it, while the stone thorns scattered all around it gradually retracted. Next to Doflamingo, a figure emerged from beneath the ground. For these people, Doflamingo didn't pay attention to it at all. A rabble. Hey, there's a lot of people around. Arthur glanced around. There were at least hundreds of people. It will soon be all cleaned up, and I believe that after this time, those people should be much more honest. Pika, Toripol, Diamanti. Let's respond warmly to the guests who have come from afar. He unexpectedly meets Arthur on this small island and promises to give him more things after this incident. Doflamingo could already imagine that countless riches awaited him. As long as he has the money, he can recruit troops and turn the world ruled by the celestial dragons upside down. Captain, do we need help? Seeing the crowd around her, Kiana was a little eager to try. Don't worry, it's just an appetizer. The real enemy hasn't done it yet, Arthur said, looking out over the hill in the distance. In the palace on the hill, Paisius and Kaido looked down. What a bunch of garbage sent out by these countries. It can be seen that the large number of people below besieging Doflamingo did not play an effective role at all. Pika alone stopped most of the power, and where Doflamingo passed, there was a sea of blood. If we continue like this, I am afraid that it will not take a few minutes, and we will always be able to slaughter all these people. Paisius had expected those countries to send a large number of capable people. But now it seems that there are capable people, but they are all weak and pitiful. I guess I naively want to win by numbers. Alas, Kaido, I can only trouble you now. Paisius finally set his sights on Kaido. Don't forget your promise. The price of deceiving me is something you can't afford. Leaving a sentence, Kaido jumped straight down. Patheus on the hill exhaled softly. This man is powerful and dangerous at the same time, but the strength shown by Doflamingo's group. I'm afraid that only this man can defeat it. It's said to be cooperation, but in fact, it's just taking advantage of each other. Chapter 101 Devils. All of them are a bunch of devils. On the island, screams came and went. Pika raised his huge fist and swung straight out, and the powerful force bombarded down, and the person who was touched directly turned into pulp. Diamante uses the fluttering fruit to turn anything on her body into a deadly weapon. Torble's slime fruit, while a bit disgusting, is a great way to control enemies. The most powerful is still Doflamingo, whose sharp threads turn into sharp blades and harvest life. Wherever they passed, not a single grass grew. Captain, don't you really need our help? It seems that it will take a long time to get rid of these enemies. Arthur looked at the enemies that were pouring in from afar, very different from the ones Doflamingo had fought. Wearing a uniform costume, it looks like a force under its command. These are the people that Paisius brought. Keeping one hand in everything is the essence of his prudence as a businessman. It may take a while for them to finish, so let's help. Bronya, how about I'll leave it to you? Hearing Arthur's first half of the sentence, Kiana immediately became excited, but the second half of the sentence made her instantly freeze in place. Mission guaranteed, Captain. Bronya nodded and walked out. Well, why let Bronya—
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.